Disclaimer. This is supposed to be a fun discussion stream for people to debate freely and not be salty and not be toxic. Please, people, please do not take any of what we say too seriously. One Piece and My Hero Academia are both fantastic series. We obviously enjoy both of these series. We're simply going to be talking about what we like and what we don't like when it comes to each series. There is no reason to take anything of what we say personally. With that being said, if you are the type of idiot who takes these things too personally, I suggest leaving the stream right now because you are going to have a bad time. What is going on, everybody? RogersBase here with the discussion that is going to break the internet today. One Piece versus My Hero Academia. We have a ton of people on stream today. Who is here right now? Make yourselves known.
Yo, Nuxtaku here. Glad to be on your stream for a change.
Yeah, I know. I was just on yours a couple days ago, and now here we are. You're joining me for what is ultimately going to be one of the craziest discussions I have ever hosted. So, and Mace is already turning in the bounty of $10, saying Carrot top 5, off to a great start. Who else is in here?
Yo, Commodore Laz, YouTube search, type the name. That's all you gotta do.
Hey, I'm Suntouch. That was a fantastic opening.
Thank you. I'm glad. I had to write that out. I never write out disclaimers before my live streams, but I felt like I had to this time around.
Oh my gosh. That was great.
Yo, Destin Reacts. Thanks for having me, Roger, bro.
Well, okay, you can't just make your entrance like that when you're the person who basically started this storm on Twitter a couple days ago. And I want to clarify something to people, too. I think to say that you can't compare One Piece and My Hero Academia because one's been around longer is kind of ridiculous. I feel like that's like saying, oh, you can't compare Chrono Trigger to Xenoblade because one's a 20-hour game and the other's a 200-hour game. They're both RPGs. These are both shonen series. You know, it's like it's fair to say they're both attempting different things, and obviously One Piece has had way more time to gestate, but at the end of the day, they are in the same genre. So I do think it is fair to at least talk about them in the same conversation. We're not saying that, you know, we're comparing One Piece, the adventure manga, to My Hero Academia, the battle manga. We're just comparing things, again, that we like and don't like in both of these series and, you know, what works best in each of them, and then ultimately which one we prefer right now. That's it. That's it. So again, people, I just wanted to clarify that.
Get ready for the salt.
I know. There's going to be a lot of... And that's not the plan. The plan is not to make people... you know, salty, and the plan is not to continue on a toxic conversation, because personally, I feel like having the discussion isn't toxic at all. I think it's the fans' reactions that make it toxic. I think not being able to debate is what's toxic. Having healthy debate and discussion about things you like, I mean, that's normal.
Absolutely.
Bro, what's good is Younger Productions. My Twitter's already been toxic based on what I said about One Piece stands and all of that. But that disclaimer is completely unnecessary, let's be honest, Roger.
I mean, you say that, but then again, you look at the dislikes on this video already before we even started recording. I think I needed to say it, so...
At the end of the day, this ain't changing no minds, but we all gonna get new haters.
No, and the one thing I purposely wanted to do with this stream is I wanted to bring in people who are fans of either both series or are hardcore fans of one or the other. So some people who are coming in later on are like really hardcore My Hero Academia fans. We've got some really hardcore One Piece fans in here, but I do think everybody's in the call right now, and the one person who's out from this original call, who's out walking his dog right now, is Afro Senju. But when he comes back, he'll make a grand entrance. But yeah, we all obviously like both series. So we're just talking about things that we like and dislike in them, whether that be week to week or, you know, in the arcs in general, characterization. I feel like that's going to be a really huge topic of discussion, is like the way that Horikoshi and Oda write their characters. Specifically, I think the women in their stories. I think that's going to open up a huge debate a little bit later on.
Yeah.
But I guess first and foremost, the first thing I want to talk about is in terms of your overall thoughts on the series. Like in terms of where the series is right now, what are you enjoying more week to week?
It's tough here now because it's like where One Piece is at. I'm like the most excited for that because we've waited like years upon years to get Wano, and the fact that we're actually in this island that Oda's been wanting to set up for so long, like I'm excited for it. But at the same time, where My Hero's at, I would have to say this is the best week to week portion that My Hero's had probably since the All for One versus All Might fight. So either option isn't wrong, but it's like I think right now, just for when it comes to continuity and just how one has kept itself consistent with good chapters upon good chapters, I gotta go with My Hero right now.
But when you say that the current arc in My Hero is good, you're not talking about the student fighting, are you?
No, I'm just talking in general from like a week to week standpoint, like what we have seen so far. Like because I know the whole thing we started talking about this was from either when Whole Cake Island started or when the cake fell. Was this whole thing kind of blew up, and
Not
you can.
even-
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of like where it came from. Like My Hero, like even since like chapter 89, I think from week to week standpoint has had better chapters, but what back to back compared to how One Piece has had.
It's funny you mention that because as far as One Piece, every chapter develops the world. Like that's the basic idea of One Piece, that it'll continuously grow and grander as the story moves forward. And even the chapters that don't seem all that exciting, like honestly, I don't love the beginnings of the arcs where we're setting it up. Every chapter does develop what's going to be going on. And I do like the introduction of new characters. While in My Hero Academia, every second arc is a villain arc, right? But the in-between arcs are the training arcs. For the training arcs, there are chapters in between. Like this past chapter, for example. Nothing happened. Let's be honest.
Oh man.
Oh
Man. You're not gonna start. We can't start with this.
We're not going to start with that. I think
That's blasphemy.
Yeah, I mean,
we're
like,
not going to start with
even-
nothing happened. But I will say this: I think it depends on your preference, right? So, like for me, I know, like Dustin, for example, you have not been enjoying these first few chapters of Wano Country. It's just like it's not exciting to you. Whereas for me, I actually have been enjoying the setup of Wano. I like the introduction of all these new characters. I like seeing, Oda's spin on feudal Japan. It's been fun for me. Honestly, to the point where it's been a lot more fun to me reading One Piece week to week right now than it was at the ending of Whole Cake Island. I felt at the ending of Whole Cake Island, there were cliffhangers, but the cliffhanger was one and the same every single week. It was, is Big Mom going to catch them? Is Big Mom going to catch them? Whereas now, the cliffhangers are the reintroduction of characters that we haven't seen in a while, the introduction of new characters like the headliners. And, I also think with One Piece, I feel like the series excels with the shorter arcs. And My Hero has the luxury of being able to have most of their arcs be shorter than normal. So, like, if you look at some of the best arcs in My Hero Academia, I still love the Overhaul arc, even though it's one of the longest. But a lot of people have issues with the Overhaul arc. But if you look at One Piece, for example, if you look at the best arcs of the New World so far, I feel like Zoe, The Reverie, both of those stand out where almost every chapter was exciting and world building and lots of new information. And, with things like Wano or Whole Cake Island or Fishman Island, they're longer arcs and they take more time to set up. So it is harder to criticize them week to week. But I think once the arc is over, your opinion can absolutely change. Like looking at Whole Cake Island in the beginning. Yeah, well, go ahead.
It's funny you mention that because my favorite arcs in My Hero Academia are hands down the Stain arc and the Endeavor arc. Like hands down. And they're both relatively short arcs and every chapter was amazing.
And I think, my bad, but the thing with My Hero is each chapter has a purpose and each character has a purpose. Whereas with One Piece, you have moments where at the start, you feel like, all right, these characters, they may have a purpose, they may not have a purpose. I don't know, but I have to, keep reading to find out,
All right, so what was the purpose of the last chapter? The latest one?
Okay, so right now, and this is not a spoiler because Roger is aware.
I was gonna say, I'm aware of the character that came back. Yeah. I'm trying to stay on spoilers for the read-through, but yeah.
This last chapter, though, it wasn't. We already got that new character, that old character, reintroduced in the chapter before. This latest chapter was nothing.
We are introduced to what he can actually do. So the big thing with Shinso,
But he did that in the last chapter.
No,
he
he
just
didn't.
named it.
Brainwash, and we knew that was a big deal. But here's the thing: being able to brainwash is a really, really overpowered ability. So what we got this chapter was basically he's not overpowered. For one, he's still really slow in battle power. He wasn't able to just brainwash the entire team. And we can see that the commands that he gives are even more simple than what we had before. It's all about defining Shinso's character right now. Things happen, just not like
And not only that, I feel like there's a lot of development happening with like Kaminari, with the Vine Girl. There's different
Shizaki,
characters.
yeah.
that are
Just
getting-
because they're
yeah.
there, it doesn't necessarily mean they're being developed. Like,
I mean-
Shinso in the last chapter, not this latest one, the one before that, he used his new thingo that I won't spoil for Roger.
Thank
You're welcome,
you.
Roger. But, no problem. But he used the thingo in the last chapter. This chapter, they were in middle of the fight when the chapter started. There were no new developments, and they're still in middle of the fight when the chapter ended.
What
One
about
Piece does.
Hey, what about Class B? That's also a big part of this.
What about Class B? We didn't learn anything new about any of them.
Bro, who is this
We
guy?
did. The last couple of chapters, we knew that they were doing
See,
accomplishments.
but
They
this
were already
is
accomplishing other
why I
things.
wanted to bring a lot of different people in, because people have different perspectives on both of the recent arcs in both of these series. Real quick, I want to shout out someone real quick. Fred Bushy or Bushy, I don't know how to say your name. I think it's Bushy. Fred Bushy. Thank you for becoming a member. Nakama, of course. I got to call you out. Alchemy Street donated and said the My Hero creator said that he will one day surpass One Piece. And then Oda was like, hey, listen, step back a little bit. And Christian Allen said, if you haven't subscribed, you're playing yourself. Now, one quick thing, because I don't want this whole thing to devolve into, oh, well, this arc is better or nothing happened during this chapter. I do want to sort of like bring it back to certain aspects of the story, certain aspects of like the One Piece story and the My Hero story. And I think the first thing I want to talk about, which I think is kind of the discussion we're in right now, is week to week pacing. And I think naturally, and I feel like most of us would agree, who's in this call right now, by the way, Black Manga Critic just joined. Thank you for joining, my friend.
I got you.
But the one thing I think most of us will agree on is that My Hero, aside from maybe this last chapter where you guys are having the debate, but I don't want to get into that because I don't want to be spoiled. My Hero, week to week, I feel is paced better. But that comes down to My Hero being more of a battle, action-oriented manga, whereas One Piece is about setting up the adventure. You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
So explain. Why do you disagree with that?
I hate when people, and excuse my tone, I hate when people try to say One Piece is not about the fights, when every arc is solved with fights, pretty much, for the most part. And people always try to say One Piece is this journey, which it is, but it's about, Luffy's a fighter. It's about the fights. My Hero Academia has fights, but it's also a very well-written story that sets up his characters that leads to the progression of the overall story. The fights are not just, I'm going to punch you and you're going to punch me. The fights have, like, even the Deku versus the muscular guy. It wasn't just about him beating him. It was about him showing Koda this kid who is jaded about this whole hero society altogether, about showing him what a true hero is. It wasn't more so that he had to win to beat this villain. It was also so he can help save this kid, not just physically, but like mentally.
But the thing is the argument shouldn't be that there isn't characterization in My Hero. I think people look at that discussion and they go, oh, that's, like saying that My Hero is just a battle manga is writing off the characterization. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think there's great characterization in both of these series. But I feel like because of the length of One Piece, they have more time to sort of gestate on the ideas they're bringing up with, like Robin's past or the flashbacks. Whereas My Hero sort of needs to go into these 1 or 2 chapter flashbacks with like what we saw with Kirishima and, what we saw even with the side story arc we just got with Endeavor. I think Horikoshi's not afraid to take his main characters out of the story for a little bit. Whereas I think Oda will do it for a short period of time with something like The Reverie, but then get right back into the main story. And shout out, by the way, to Christian Allen, who just became a sponsor as well. Nakama.
Oda has too much riding on maintaining Luffy as the face of the series. He can't have Luffy away from the series for too long. It's simply the fact that One Piece has become too big to fail. You know what I mean? And not necessarily saying that it will fail. It's just that he cannot remove Luffy from his own story for too long, or else the readers in Japan, the kids, won't read One Piece. And that's something that you have to think about just as a fan, like saying, okay, how much is One Piece suffering as a result of Oda not being able to tell his own story? Whereas Horikoshi, he's fine with, number one, the length of One Piece is also a detriment to One Piece's success in a sense, because the new readers, the kids and all of that are reading One Piece, they themselves cannot, a 10-year-old kid is not going to go and remember what happened in Alabasta because just trying to buy the manga or whatever, it's really difficult. So what I'm trying to say is, with One Piece, length, you can say it has more time to gestate as a fan, right?
Right.
But if you're not a fan, it becomes a detriment to readers and bringing on new readers. You
Which
know what
I
I mean?
think is why they do the episode of series so much. And by the way, I saw Santos in the chat saying, "Oh, RogersBase, you are so trash. You did not invite one formidable One Piece defender." Well, I'm so glad you said that, Santos, because coming into the chat right now is Mr. Mugiwara, Matt B. Oh, I thought he was going to say something, but I guess not. Too bad. So much for that big introduction. And, of course, the one
Kingu.
and only Kingu of Lightning. So,
what the fuck is going on right now, bro?
Be discussing what? He's saying what's even going on.
What's up?
Yo, we have so many
I'm trying to
sponsors coming
finish this
through today, by
burrito.
the way. We got Yosef is coming back with another sponsor. Thank you so much. We get a $5 donation from YSN Rage saying, man, I'm tired of people disrespecting One Piece and saying something that's not We Disney about My Hero Academia like it's the best shonen series ever. Again, we like both of these series. We're not saying one is better than the other, overall. We're just discussing aspects that are better than the other one. That's it. We're not saying they're better overall than the other one because that would be weird. But we could still compare them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We've talked about so far, like, weekly basis.
Right.
Like, we've mentioned Reverie multiple times.
Right.
And the thing is to me, Reverie is by far the biggest proof that One Piece is, as a series, it holds the reins no problem. Because not only was Reverie like peak for 6 weeks, just doing well by itself, it had like over a decade worth of build up to it.
They finally put out, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, My Hero it's not even half a decade old yet. Like, it's impossible to have that level of build up because it's just of age. The Reverie was peak One Piece. Like, that proves where the series is.
But then the fault of that, the Reverie, is that Oda cannot maintain that level of storytelling for so long.
I mean, he can't maintain. He can't maintain it, but if you look at like how long Reverie was and stuff, you look at like the rankings again with the kids who are putting in like what they feel was the best for those 6 weeks that we got Reverie. One Piece did not fall from the number 3 spot. It shows that the kids even then were still enjoying it from there.
Reverie was 5 chapters, and everything that people got hyped off about was we saw Big Straw Hat at the end of one chapter, we saw Shanks at the end of the next one, then we saw M-Sama in one of the other ones.
Can I just? I feel like the reason why the Reverie was so hyped was because it was the first time in a minute that we were away from the Straw Hats, all of them together.
And I appreciate that.
And you can do that. You don't have to always focus on them all the time.
Right. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about with My Hero too, right? Is you look at the Endeavor arc that we just got through, and I feel like that focused not on All Might, not on Deku, but on a side character that ultimately built up the world, right? Seeing the top 10, top 5 heroes and what they can actually do, that was interesting to me. And again, that's a side story. It didn't focus on the main characters. And I think both Oda and Horikoshi excel at telling these side stories. I just think that, and this is not meant to disrespect Oda. So
I think
take this as a
everyone
disrespect.
really excels at that.
Yeah,
I mean, like, even if you look at
I don't know,
Naruto,
because I would
as an
argue,
example-
as somebody who's on like the One Piece side, if we had to choose sides, I would argue that Horikoshi is better at taking the risk and covering one of his side characters, whereas Oda will do it. But because he has so much time, he's like, well, I don't need to talk about these guys for the time being. I could just do more world building, which again is totally fine. It's enjoyable to me, but I would
say that their focuses are different. Like, I wouldn't really compare. While I'd say the main thematic narrative of My Hero Academia is what makes a hero. So now we're going to explore, All Might and Deku, who are noble people fighting for noble causes. We're going to explore Endeavor, who is a not noble person fighting for a noble cause. We'll explore Stain, who is fighting for a not noble cause, but he is a noble person, or at least he considers himself to be. Then you have the League of Villains. This sets up 4 extremes, and it develops what makes a hero. That's the story of My Hero Academia, in a nutshell. One Piece is not that at all. One Piece is about finding freedom.
Oh, man.
So,
Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
it is.
King, go ahead. You were going to say something. Go ahead.
First of all, the actual premise of this argument is like, what's the main focus of this argument? Because I'm curious. Like, it's just what's better? Because that's massive.
My Hero
I think
Academia.
there's so many people right now And ultimately, I do think Dustin's the one who sort of like kicked this off on Twitter with comparing these two series. But I do feel it within the fandoms right now. Like, I think a really good example, this is something that was brought up in the chat before we even went live, and I wrote it down because I wanted to talk about it during the stream, is it feels like My Hero fans are at this point where, we're about 200 chapters in, it's exploding in terms of popularity, and they now feel like, My Hero is one of the big three, it's become one of these most popular, like, shonen anime series, we're so excited, like, it's going to be this really big thing, and on one hand, they don't want to compare themselves to One Piece yet because they feel like it would be unfair to My Hero because One Piece has had so much time to build up the story. Whereas on the other side, and again, this was in my chat earlier, so don't crucify me for this, but I feel like One Piece fans right now, specifically US One Piece fans, like North American One Piece fans, almost feel threatened. I think like after years of being behind Naruto in terms of popularity in the United States, like One Piece finally became the most popular of the weekly shonen series on things like YouTube. People were talking about it all the time. But then all of a sudden, My Hero Academia blew up and people like started losing their minds. And in Japan, this isn't an argument. Nobody's comparing One Piece to My Hero in Japan. Like we had just mentioned that thing where Oda and Horikoshi were talking, and Horikoshi jokingly was like, "I'll surpass you one day," and Oda's like, "Yeah, good luck with that. Maybe don't get too cocky, kid." It's like it's not even a question in Japan. But in North America, I think there is an argument to be had between, which of these shonen series is more popular right now. And I do think for a while, One Piece was sort of riding that wave after Naruto ended. And I don't necessarily feel that right now. And that's not...
Roger.
Go ahead.
Let me say this real quick.
Yeah.
One Piece only became popular because Naruto ended. Like One Piece became the most popular. Let me be very careful with my words.
Yeah, right.
Became the most popular in the US because Naruto ended. So as soon as something new action pack came along, that that was gonna be elevated. I mean, like look at Attack on Titan. You could argue that Attack on Titan was more popular over here in the US than One Piece has ever been.
I would agree to that. Yeah,
I agree.
So if you look at it from that sense, right, then I don't think that it's a matter of popularity on that large scale because One Piece has never had that. The main popularity of the series comes from Japan. Like it sold 400 million copies or whatever, but 343 million came from Japan. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly. Well, that's my point, right? Is that there was never a question with One Piece in Japan. One Piece has always and will always be king. Always. It will always be.
I don't think that there's a question of it. I don't think that there's even a question of it over here. I think it's like if people, like One Piece over here, then they really, really, really like it. And if you don't, then, it's just like one of them things. Damn, I can't fuck with it.
Right.
Or, my bad. I can't mess with it.
It's okay. That's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, but hold on. Is this a popularity contest though between the two?
No, hold on. Okay.
No.
It's not. All right. But okay. Let's switch it up, right?
Okay.
Because My Hero is shorter, right? How do you feel? 20 volumes of My Hero Academia are out right now versus the first 20 volumes of One Piece.
Okay.
Which do you feel fair?
Man, I'm gonna be.
I still like One Piece more, man.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna go with One Piece, and I've been thinking like so. The chapters like for people were comparing My Hero Academia to Naruto, right? And isn't it like the part 1 of Naruto has 235 chapters?
Yeah,
235 chapters. So we're coming up to that point, right? And like when I think about it, I can't think of anything that My Hero Academia had that was like anything even close to that. Right. So with that marker in mind, I wouldn't say that I would take it over the first 20 volumes of One Piece.
What was volume 20? I'm trying to think back. What was volume
20? That was Alabasta. Yeah.
Usopp versus Mr. 4.
I mean, this is definitely going to be controversial, and I'm 100% going to get hate for this, but that's fine. And again, it feels weird that I'm this person saying this because I'm on, like, if I had to choose one, the One Piece side. But if we're comparing, like, the Alabasta arc, which was the first really big, long arc of One Piece, to the Overhaul arc, which is the first big arc of My Hero Academia,
No comparison.
no comparison. I'm taking Overhaul. Like, not even a question.
Yeah.
I am taking the Overhaul arc.
For the first big arc is the overall arc. I don't think it's the first big arc. I mean,
It
What
is.
would
Kinda
you
it
think-
is,
what would you
it is,
think is
yeah.
the first big,
It is.
long, epic arc of My Hero then, if it wasn't Overhaul?
it's like the forced training arc would probably be the first big
That was
arc.
10 chapters.
that wasn't that long.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm
that was-
The first training arc kind of like flows into
the arcs that in
it,
Damien.
yeah.
Like mine,
Not-
like that many long. I mean, like I guess like chapter length, what you consider to be a long arc, honestly. Like for example, it's like the stuff with Stain was only 2 chapters. Not even. It was like a
5
chapter.
chapters. It was 5 chapters.
No, it's Stain.
The Stain arc was 5 chapters.
The thing is, Horikoshi is able to do more with less,
Oh,
and
like
even
11
if you
chapters,
look,
baby.
Overhaul arc is much shorter than Alabasta, but it's still like week to week, and even as the entire arc, it has more meaning and more value derived out of it. You think back to the Night Eye stuff, you think back to the Kirishima stuff. You think there's so many moments in that arc that you look back and you say, okay, I've derived much more enjoyment out of it than.
All the character elements that you get in My Hero are all predicated on really one thing, and that is their ties to being a hero, with the exception of the villain side. Whereas in One Piece, that's really because One Piece is an ever-expanding story. My Hero Academia is not an ever-expanding story.
I would disagree with that, though, with the Overhaul arc and the Alabasta arc, because I would argue that the biggest portion of the Alabasta arc that people remember and talk about are the crocodile fights. Whereas when you think about like the story behind the Overhaul arc and what's really going on there, Overhaul is more of a family drama than it is a battle arc. There is, of course, a battle in Overhaul. There's tons of fights in the Overhaul arc, but I think at the core of the story, it's about a little girl who has been abused and the people going to save her. And on the other side of things, right, the villain who's trying to shake things up with this organization that's been set up for, you know, this really long period of time, where you could make the same argument with Crocodile, right? Is they're shaking up. It's a big organization. You got the Shichibukai. They're introduced. There's these new types of villains. You've got the fights with Luffy and with Crocodile, and you've got the family drama stuff with the Nefertari clan. But at the end of the day, I would say Alabasta is more about the kingdom's story, and My Heroes with Overhaul is on a much smaller scale. They both have battles in them, but I don't know. It's tough.
And
It
just
is
because-
tough.
just
And I'm
because
not
they-
saying
just because
either
it's-
one's bad. I think they're both good. Again, like I see tons of people in the chat saying like, why can't you like both? We're not saying you can't like both. You can absolutely like both.
Of course,
It's just a
but-
matter of preference. That's
Like I feel okay. Like I'm still trying to figure out what this what the debate is. You know, still because.
Bro,
It
Roger,
just
Roger,
seems-
can I say what it is?
Go ahead.
Because we
Yeah,
keep skirting
go ahead.
past it. My Hero Academia has been better consistently, mostly, not every week, but consistently since the start of the Big Mom arc, May 19, 2016. My Hero Academia has been better. My Hero Academia was right before the All Might versus All for One fight when Whole Cake Island started. Since then, we had the All for One fight, we had the provisional license exam, we had the overall arc, and then we had the stuff with the training
Endeavor.
arc, Endeavor, and where we are now. It week to week basis, My Hero Academia has been better for 2.5 years.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
if we're gonna try to narrow it down to that time frame,
mean,
I
yeah,
actually
come on.
I would disagree with that. I don't think that's the case. I think One Piece has had bigger moments in the past 2 years, and My Hero has had a lot of exciting moments. But I think ultimately, I mean,
It's
we're
like-
comparing, like,
it-
the
it's
good,
like-
because the good no,
Okay.
okay. Well, let me explain. Because like the good portion of Whole Cake Island would have been at the beginning of that timeline, right? Like the falling of Whole Cake Chateau and Big Mom's backstory. All of that stuff happened during arguably one of the worst arcs of My Hero Academia, which was
No, it
Provisional
didn't.
License.
No, not true.
That-
That's not true.
That is totally true. How am
No,
I
because
wrong?
the beginning of Whole Cake Island was the seducing woods and all that stuff. All that stuff was was during the All for One versus the All for One fight
Not
and the provisional license exam. The
Okay.
Cake Chateau and the rest of that was during Overhaul arc.
like my dudes. Goddamn, what is?
Bro,
We're just comparing timelines now. It's a matter of
yeah. Now we're just comparing.
the timelines. I think we should actually compare the content rather than the timeline.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
It works
If you
both ways.
compare the content, if you compare the content, then it seems like My Hero, like it seems like it's the same thing as like a Toriko in a sense, where it's a whole bunch of action each week and it's very fast paced storytelling. But at the root of it, like, where's the substance? Where does the
Oh my god! Oh my god!
What?
You,
Oh my
you did not
God.
just say substance.
Yeah,
People that's my problem. People downplay My Hero. And it's like, do you skim through the series or do you actually read the chapters?
Okay. Look, this is
you wouldn't make statements like that.
This is all I'm saying when I read My Hero Academia. It seems like if you're gonna say that if you're gonna say a series is bad or that it suffers because it's too slow, then you have to feel the same way if a series goes too fast. There seems to be there seems to be no hang on a second. There seems to be no transitions when it comes to My Hero Academia. It's like we just boom, we jump. We're here, then we're here, then we're here, then we're here. It's like, what can you? I'm not saying set it up for fucking 20 chapters, but can we get some type of background, some type of just something? It seems like it's just thrown at your face, and you got to take all this shit in, and then you go on.
Of that, because I'm thinking about it recently, because I'm not up to date with My Hero. I think I'm like 2 chapters behind, but the reasons that I think to mind is when we have like the end of the Endeavor stuff, right? And then he's talking to his, and all of a sudden we just cut to Deku. It's like, what? Why are we Deku? He just okay, we're just here with Deku, and then he's dreaming about what happened. Oh, well, I don't want to spoil too much stuff, but he's dreaming, and then like the dream goes on from there. It's like there are these cuts that kind of throw you off. But the problem with pacing is when you look at all the categories that you can kind of like rate a series on, I would say it's the most subjective because it depends on honestly the person. It's like kind of artwork where it's like pacing. It can feel fast at times. It can be slow at times. But you compare it to the overall series or the overall arc. So, for example, like the Reverie compared to the overall series of One Piece is a fairly quick arc, and it's like 6 chapters. But 6 chapters for let's say an arc in My Hero is the norm. But the overhaul arc, which is nowhere near let's say the length of like let's say Skypiea or Alabasta, is a fairly long arc with respects to My Hero, but now with respect to One Piece. So pacing is extremely subjective when it comes to, okay, well, I feel like it's too fast or I feel like it's too slow. If you want to try and gauge series based on actual quality, you can do pacing, it's fine. But you also have to gauge more so world building and then character.
Nah.
World building is not
Wait, real quick. I want to say something real quick. Wait, time out. I want to say something real quick because I think this is a genuine problem within the anime and manga community on YouTube, on Twitter, on social media in general, is that this idea of like subjectivity and objectivity, right? Obviously, when we're saying, oh, I like this thing or this didn't work, we're not saying that as fact. This is simply our opinion on a series. And people take this up so personally. They're like, how could you possibly say that this didn't work? How could you possibly say you don't like Jiro as a character? How could you possibly say you didn't like the ending of Luffy versus Katakuri? Roger, what's wrong with you? We're literally just sharing our opinions. And this idea that things have to be one thing or the other. Like, again, obviously we titled it which series is better, but that's a question. That's not stating an objective fact. We're not saying One Piece is better than My Hero Academia or vice versa. We are sharing opinions, and I don't know where that confusion comes in with this community, but it seems like a very anime manga community tailored problem.
It is.
Yeah. Go ahead, Subpatch.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
My mic is terrible.
It's okay.
It's not just anime and manga anymore. It's any large fandom. For some reason lately, it's like there's a sense of entitlement. Like the story is almost theirs, and if what they want doesn't happen, then the author has somehow screwed up. Like it's no longer the author's story. And that's such a problem. Like we talked about the pacing of One Piece, and I don't know if maybe people just jumped in super late, but One Piece is over 20 years old. Oda has had the same writing style for over 20 years.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Like this pacing thing and this setup. New thing. It's been the same thing for 20 years. Why you're complaining about it now, I don't know. It's not new.
Stories are supposed to evolve, though. You're not supposed to have the same thing constantly. It's supposed to evolve and change over time.
Wait, no. So were you about to say something?
My bad.
I'm done. That was my tweet.
Okay. I was looking through my DMs, and then someone tweeted me, "Are you aware that My Hero Academia is used to recruit members to join ISIS?"
Wait, what? I'm not even gonna have you repeat that. That's fine. Hold on. Black manga critic, you've been quiet for
I've just been listening.
For a minute, so I want to hear your thoughts on this.
So just to quickly say like the sort of like Matt's like kind of like I mean Matt, do you still believe like even at this point that My Hero Academia like doesn't have substance like from what you've read? Like you still believe that? Or do you feel like it does, but it's not to like your standards or something?
I didn't say that it didn't have any substance at all.
Okay.
It's just really action. It's really action heavy. It's straight to the point. It's in your face, you know. So
okay. So I guess like that. I think like most shonen are gonna be action. Most battle shonen are gonna be action heavy. That's sort of like a given. But I think My Hero does so much in terms of, if you want to call it substance, but I would call it like relating to sort of like our own sort of reality and things that happen in our own realities. And the one thing I will say is that I can't remember when something from One Piece in terms of just like recently, something from One Piece recently had the same effect as the Endeavor stuff. And that sort of like hero stuff from My Hero. I can't remember anyone like having actual conversation about like abuse and about spousal abuse and familial abuse and all that stuff. Like that was like a thing. Like it was like it went away from My Hero for a good minute, and it was like we weren't just talking about Endeavor anymore. We were talking about like how do people feel about abuse. Like it was like it transcended like the actual like manga, and I think like that substance, you know what I mean? Like when you have a text that doesn't sort of allow its readers to stay within its story, it's like we talk about these things that like actually affect us and that we think about and all this and all stuff. So I don't know. That's kind of what I have to say about the substance thing.
And that's obviously
and Katakuri fans over here.
Oh, go ahead, Nux.
Katakuri had a pretty crazy character arc by his own right. I mean, I love Endeavor, and he's probably my second favorite character in Hero Academia. But Katakuri is one of my favorite characters in One Piece, and to think he didn't have a downright incredible character arc, I don't know. I feel like someone's missing something.
But that's...
But hold on, here's the thing, though. It's not just that. It's also when you compare it to, okay, well, this is what we kind of have in like the real world aspect, and people go through abuse in the real world, therefore it's more relatable. But again, that's just all down to what I prefer those elements of the story because they kind of relate more so to real life stuff. Whereas, for example, in One Piece, recently you have the Reverie, and within the story of itself, the Reverie is so pivotal. Like in those 6 chapters, they're so essential for the overall story. They just can't be ignored for the overall story, even though the Endeavor stuff has more weight to you personally because you can relate to it personally in some way, shape, or form. The fact of the matter is that for the overall story, it's just for the character Endeavor and Todoroki and his family. Whereas with the Reverie, it's for the whole scope of the entire series when it comes to Emu, when it comes to Shanks, when it comes to Meeting of Kings, and it's been hyped up for a very, very long time. So that whole element of, well, okay, it hits me personally, okay, that's fine. But when it comes to actual story and world building, the Reverie is phenomenal from that standpoint.
Bro, but what do we get from...
Wait, double time out on both of you, because I want to answer something real quick. Because, King, that's not where I thought you were going with your point. Where I thought you were going, I thought you were going to defend your boy, Mr. Top 5 Vince Smoke Judge, because that is something, like, we did just deal with family abuse. I think it's a fair comparison to compare Sanji and his backstory with the Vince Smokes to what's going on with the Todoroki family in My Hero Academia.
I don't know.
But as a counterpoint, real quick, let me finish real quick. I would just say, as a counterpoint, I would also say that One Piece does deal with some of those hard-hitting issues. Maybe not as much recently. We had a lot of stuff in Dressrosa and Zoe and, now the beginning of Wano that's more with world building as opposed to like these issues that you can relate to. But I look at Fishman Island. Fishman Island was a story arc ultimately about racism, which is something that Horikoshi has not even touched yet. And I don't even know how they would touch on that within the world of My Hero Academia.
That's going to be the major villain of One Piece, of Hero Academia. All the villains are deformed.
Well, I mean,
I feel like
hold on. I can
there's not an argument for quirks and not. Go ahead.
I feel like
because I wanted to respond to the abuse stuff. I feel like
go ahead.
the way that One Piece handled the Sanji stuff is I think it like pales in comparison to the way that Horikoshi's handled.
I totally.
You know what I mean?
I
I don't think Horo handled that. Yeah.
I wouldn't even compare
Sanji
Dark to Endeavors. That's why I took Katakuri as a recent example. Because he's a character that was actually fleshed out well, as opposed to Sanji's, which was rather meh. Let's be honest.
No, I think Sanji had it pretty good.
Yeah,
honestly.
I thought Sanji actually had it pretty good too.
Awesome.
I was very disappointed.
I was too.
To be quite fair, like Horikoshi doesn't shy away from these topics of abuse because they relate to humanity, number one. Number two, they relate to what it means to be a human and what it means to be a villain. That is something intrinsic to the story as well. And you look back to even the Ares storyline, that is something that to if you're skimming at the surface, you think, all right, this is just she's in a bad spot, but it deals with child abuse, neglect, all these aspects, and then it goes into the parent side with Endeavor. Like the story has threads that interweave into each other, even though they don't seem related, and that is what feels like a lot more substantive when you're reading and you actually look into the story, as opposed to One Piece with or Judge. Okay, he's saying, "Oh, I'll get out of here. I don't want you in my sight." Like, well, at the end of the day, if I don't know, man, when it comes to One Piece, it doesn't hit as hard in terms of if we're comparing that, and even like with Katakuri, it deals with bullying, but it doesn't deal with it in a way that feels hard hitting. You know what I mean? And like commentate.
The way I see it, Hero Academia deals with personal issues a lot more, whereas One Piece deals with societal issues more.
What?
So it's hard to compare exactly.
I mean,
like
I would agree with that. I would agree with that partially, because I think they'll deal with personal issues when it comes to the core Straw Hats. But I think when it comes to everything else, then it's more of a societal thing.
I'm not saying they'll deal with societal issues and exclude all personal problems.
Right.
I mean, the narrative it's telling is more, focused on the world as opposed to the individuals.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, though.
Real quick, I also want to say, because I see a lot of people in the chat being like, well, why are you even having this discussion? Because it's going back and forth on what you guys think are good or what you guys think are bad. But ultimately, see, I find this fascinating because I like to find out what people are interested in when it comes to their favorite series. And again, most of us in this call like both of these series. It's not like we don't like them. It's just that we have a preference in terms of some of the aspects of either the storytelling or the art or whatever. We haven't even gotten into the action choreography or like other character. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I have written down. This is probably going to end up being a long stream, but just on our overall general thoughts, I think it's interesting to actually share your opinions on this with other people who maybe don't see the same thing as you. I don't know. I don't think it's stupid. I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have.
Like what you were saying earlier about, like, I think about the biggest, like maybe the closest thing that My Hero would get to racism that I honestly think that Horikoshi could do a lot more with is the quirkless versus the quirks. Mm-hmm. Like we saw it at the beginning of the series. Bakugo, I mean, that was like not mild bullying. Like he was being told to kill himself by, like he was utterly useless to society. And he's really the only one we've seen so far, aside from the movie that we were just introduced to. Like there still should be a decent amount of people in this society that don't have quirks, that like we don't touch on ever.
Well, we have the police officer guy that works with All Might.
Yeah, but the police officers are just like they're there to assist everybody else when it comes to their hero duty. So, but even if you don't have a quirk, you can still be a plus to society.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I feel like when it comes to Oda, he will introduce these concepts, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the follow through and hitting the hard topic, right? You see, okay, he will turn it into a gag. That's the issue. You go into pudding, right? Or she was bullied because she had her third eye, and she went almost manic and almost suicidal to an extent where she had mental issues, right? But then at the end of the day, it was played off for a joke. Whereas if Horikoshi tackles an element of abuse or mental issues, he follows through with the writing to back it up. That's what I feel like the difference is. Whereas Oda will play it off for a laugh.
No, because
go ahead.
No, because they tend to be major themes within respects of the arc. Whereas when it comes to One Piece, more so, that is an element of the arc because the arcs tend to be much longer. Because when it comes to world building, I mean, no offense to Oda blows them out of the fucking water.
Of course, yeah, because it's a long.
You don't need world building doesn't hinge upon.
Hold on.
All right, bro.
My bad. But, like, if we're gonna go to the bigger deal, right? We go to Big Mom. She was the central threat of the Whole Cake Island arc, and even her issues with regards to obsessively eating food and all of that. You can go and talk about those issues when it comes to obesity and all of this. These are different topics that affect society, but at the end of the day, it's played for a laugh, and she goes crazy and all of this, and and some of your readers might not feel a certain way about how you represent or treat or view certain characters, certain elements, and it's a reflection on your writing,
But going back to, because one of you touched on like mental illness, right? With these characters that are struggling with something else, and then they're having to deal with it, and having the author, present that to the readers. I think actually a really good foil for Pudding, if we're looking at My Hero compared to One Piece in terms of what's happened recent in the manga, would be La Brava. I think if you're gonna compare two characters that are dealing with the issues of love and not being loved and abuse, I think like La Brava's a great example because she's somebody who never really knew how to love and was made fun of for loving people. Like, you know what I mean? Whereas you look at Pudding, and Pudding was a character who never felt loved, right? She was a character who was always picked on by her mom, and then in feeling love, she had this sort of shift in characterization, whereas with La Brava, that was a core element of her character that didn't just shift willy-nilly because of what another character did. And I think, maybe this goes into a deeper conversation about like the women in both of these series, but I think that is a genuine concern that a lot of people have when talking about One Piece. Even if they love the series, it's the way Oda writes and designs women as opposed to how Horikoshi writes and designs women. You look at, Ochako and Froppy and just like literally name any girl character in My Hero Academia and compare them either design-wise or what's going on with their character to a lot of the side female characters in One Piece. I mean, are we just going to sit here and lie and say Okiku doesn't kind of look like Robin and that Viola didn't look like Robin? And, like there's all these characters who have a very similar design. And I'm not saying Oda's a bad artist by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, I love Oda's art. But what I'm saying is that Oda pretty much draws his women one of two ways, right? You got the character that looks like the standard hourglass, Nami, Robin, whatever, hot girl. Or you've got the really horrifically ugly big fat lady like Big Mom or Dadan. You know what I mean? Like, there's not really a middle ground there.
Yeah.
They don't really, there's no middle ground there. Whereas Horikoshi, I think, plays up the designs of the characters, either through their hero designs or through just their own characterization. Like Froppy's a frog. She has a frog quirk. So naturally she has frog-like elements to her design. Whereas, you look at a character like, I don't know, Okiku, and then what's the thing that makes her stand out? Okay, she's a little bit taller. You know what I mean? Like, I think a good example of a difference in female design recently would actually be Osuru, right? The owner of the tea house in Wano country. He designed her to look almost like a traditional Japanese woodblock painting, but I would say that's not necessarily the norm in One Piece. And I think that will open up, a whole nother conversation. So let's see what you guys think about that.
Well, I mean, that's
to be honest, I'm not huge into character designs per se as much as the writing that goes into the characters. So all you.
All right, I'll leave it to King then. By the way, Brago just joined us. Welcome, Brago. People have been waiting for you to join this discussion, so I'm happy you finally made it into my mail.
Yo, what's going on, guys? This is tough. This is tough to hear because I love both series, but I think One Piece is getting shit on a little bit.
Well, all right. So let's hear about it. What are your thoughts on the topic I just brought up?
With the character design, yeah, it's definitely My Hero with the women. Like you said, all it does is venture out from time to time.
Wait. So I gotta call you out for this. You come into the call, you're like, man, My Hero's getting. I mean, One Piece is just getting destroyed during the stream. And I'm like, what do you think on the topic we just discussed? And you're like, oh, My Hero for sure, facts. Like,
oh yeah, with the women, I gotta be honest, right?
Yeah.
But with Yanko was talking about like slavery, not slavery, just abuse and all that stuff. Like Sanji went through all that.
That's what I was gonna.
Yeah, but the follow through is what he's talking about. You know,
what about the follow through?
The follow through is not nearly as great as what Horikoshi is doing with My Hero. He's still doing that. He's still working on that.
Wait, so you're saying Todoroki getting burned is more impactful than Sanji?
No, I'm talking about even just like it's not just Todoroki. It's like it's like there's Todoroki and there's Shoto, and then there's Endeavor, and then there's the rest of the family, and it's like a ripple effect. It's like abuse has this ripple effect, and when it comes to this stuff and that's very distinct in My Hero. You can see that it's clear as day. It's that ripple effect is still happening, right? In terms of the story. When it comes to One Piece, it's almost like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna show Sanji's past. Then all these other things are gonna happen in terms of the Big Mom pirates and blah blah blah, and they need to escape. And then what we're gonna do is leave like a raid suit to suggest that in the future maybe he'll use a raid suit. And I'm like, dude, where's the growth? Like I don't understand how Sanji has changed as a character. I don't see that. Maybe we will see that, but I doubt it. I doubt it.
I doubt it. In terms of like what you just mentioned with the raid suit, this is one thing that I think One Piece does really, really well, and that is making the fans wait for a delivery that is worth it. Like literally, Reverie was so hyped because it was worth the wait, because it was worth the wait. And I mean, probably the most hype I've ever gotten reading anything was the Sabo reveal. Like literally, the entire fandom lost their crap.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Sabo reveal, to be fair, is what brought me into the community on YouTube in the first place, right? I was reading it week to week already, and then I saw the Sabo stuff and, the stuff in early Dressrosa, and I got so excited that I wanted to talk to other people about it. And I don't know. I mean, maybe this holds true. Maybe I'm just jaded because most of us in this call, honestly, have been YouTubers for quite a while. But maybe King could speak on this because he's been YouTubing probably the longest out of everybody that's in this call. But it is weird to sort of see the shift in what people are excited about. Because for me, the stuff with the world building and the reintroduction of characters at the beginning of Dressrosa was super awesome to read week to week. And Wano Country, while I'm enjoying it so far, hasn't really had the same effect on the community overall. At least it seemed that way to me.
I think expectations were higher, and that's it.
I don't know. I would argue no. I think people were pretty hyped for the Doflamingo arc going into it. People wanted to see what Doflamingo was going to do, and then
but I mean, expectations were higher to not only learn about Wano, but to meet the other members of the Straw Hats, to see what Law's up to. But we ended up getting right back with Luffy. Luffy again. Oh, more Luffy. I mean, I love the guy, but at the same time, I can see why I would have liked an arc focusing on Zoro and Law, and then Luffy comes in.
But it's not new. It's been like this for 20 years. Yeah. This is not a new thing.
I'm not complaining about One Piece. I like the Wano arc so far. I'm just mentioning why I can see that people would be less excited here, whereas Dressrosa, everyone was going in with the same mind.
And by the way, we've got two more people joining the call right now. We got Mr. Hermzor, of course, who also likes One Piece and My Hero Academia. Herm has finally joined the call.
I love Black Clover.
All right.
Wait, what?
And we also have, because a lot of people were like, this is so unbalanced. It's you and a bunch of One Piece YouTubers talking about One Piece versus My Hero. So I made sure I asked you guys, who should I invite on for this discussion? And everybody was like, yo, you need to get Orpheus on this discussion. He's a great My Hero YouTuber. We want to hear what he has to say. So Orpheus is joining us as well.
Hello, hi. Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Yeah. Oh, okay, sweet, thank you. Sorry, I'm nervous. I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous, man. It's a fun, free-form discussion. People are already laughing about what Herm just said with Black Clover. So, see, it's lightened the mood, people. Look, it's more likes than dislikes now. Look at that. See, Herm, you turned the tide of battle. Now we have 400 likes to 250 dislikes. Look at that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Because we all know, like, Sword Art destroys both, like My Hero and One Piece. Let's just be honest. Especially the elf one. Yeah, I love that.
The elf one.
Yeah, Alfheim. I think that's what it's called. Yes, everyone agrees with me in the chat. Thank you guys. Black Clover. Yes.
I don't know. Kororo Gunso is pretty great. I still love it. Sergeant Frog is pretty much still the best thing of all time. I also wanted to bring up really quickly because I feel like I'm ignoring them, and I do want to address all the donations that we've been getting. There are a lot of different topics that were brought up in the donations. Christian Allen donated like half an hour ago and said King of Lightning flexing with the little clap emojis. Rocinante Don Quixote donated $20 and said Lord Twigo is the most OP One Piece character. Sunpatch, I love you. Please give
Absolutely.
Please give
Lord
Sunpatch
Twigo is the greatest character in all of Shonen.
And he also goes on to say One Piece is life. It doesn't look like he wrote a poem for you, though, Sunpatch. Unfortunately, we're not getting that during this stream.
I'll take a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, Z-Boy donated and said, My Hero is great, but don't hate on One Piece. Again, we're not. And Christian also donated again and said, I don't hear anyone touching on the unfinished chapter of the festival arc. We're not going to talk about that because that was due to factors out of their control. So that's exactly. YSN Rage said, please stop bringing politics into anime and manga. Please stop reading anime and manga. Lieutenant Smash FSP said, if you think Sanji had a good abuse story, you weren't abused growing up. The abuse handling in My Hero Academia is far superior if you have IRL experience with it. That's, I think, debatable. And Soy Boy Theories, which is a hysterical name, donated $10 and said,
I love Soy Boy Theories. Best guy ever.
One Piece women are so much better than My Hero Academia women. Just look at their feet. So
look at the feet.
That's all right. That's great.
Their sweaty feet. You have to watch the Soy Boy Theories channel on YouTube, by the way.
Shout out to Soy Boy Theories. Soy Boy wishes he could have been here, but he's actually out of town visiting family. Getting back into it, though, Brago, it sounded like you had something to say before I went off and read what people in the chat were saying.
I don't remember this one. I'll jump in. I'll jump in again once we get on something.
Whoa, you straight up sound like a robot too. So I don't know what's going on there. Well, let's bring it back then maybe to the women in both of these series and sort of how both of these authors portray women and their power levels. I mean, where do we want to get started with this? Because I think like there's a lot to this. I
think the women. Sorry, cut you off.
No, go ahead.
What? I was just gonna say, I think the women in My Hero Academia, I think they're cool, but I think the One Piece females are a lot more well developed when you look at like Nami and Robin mainly. But like, I think Ochiko is probably like the most well developed female in My Hero Academia. But when you even compare her to the males like Endeavor and Bakugo, she's still not as well developed as them. So I think there's some room to like, I think there's room for improvement in like My Hero Academia's females, like development wise. But I don't think they're like completely terrible. I think
during the overall arc, didn't they like disappear? I remember that. Like at the beginning of the overall arc, where you had Ochiko and Tsuruo, and like they were just like put to the sideline. Then we just focus on Kirishima. We focus on
best boy Mirio.
Yeah, Mirio, and then we focus on all of them. Yeah, here's the thing I will say though, right? Just let me just throw this out there. All right, please. My thing with My Hero, right, is that there are some elements of the story that I think are fantastic, but then there are other elements, and this is where I think My Hero Con just turns off a little bit. It's like, if you appreciate the slice of elements, then fine. I can't. I don't. It's the reason why I can't watch JoJo's Part 4. I just those elements turn me the fuck off massively. And My Hero has that, I would say, in spades, which is fine considering how, it's a high school setting and, like they're, again, all of them. And for a character standpoint, even though you do have character development, all of them have the same trend when it comes to being a hero on the opposite side where it's a villain. There are very few exceptions to that rule in My Hero Academia. But again, it comes down to, well, listen, you have characters that are in a school setting, which is very generic. Because I was seeing in chat, folks saying My Hero Academia is generic. It's generic as fuck. And I can kind of see why they say that, because some of these elements are generic. And they are... And they do suck you out of that shit, bro. And it's like, fuck. Like, I don't want to... Oh, she's playing the car. Oh, yeah, she's rocking out the festival. I don't give a fuck, bro.
No, that was... Okay, the series...
Like, get the fuck out of here.
Bro, you are reaching.
I'm not reaching. I'm just saying I can understand what you say it's generic.
I'm kind of with King on this one also. Because the way they work it out is... The main chapter in between each arc is pretty terrible in My Hero Academia.
Oh my nigga.
Terrible?
Oh, consistently, it's not great. And
Hold on.
It's one thing from an opinion to a straight out lie, bro.
Oh, look at this right here. Look at this motherfucker right here.
You guys are going very off the walls in terms of We Disney,
I think
man.
I think the slice of
the most
I think the
thing I've
slice
ever
of
heard
life
in this
adds a
stream.
lot to
We
it.
Disney's done. We
Oh
Disney's
my
dead right
God.
now. Bro. It's over.
No.
It's over. What do you mean we Disney, bro? Yo, go Pixar. Yo, man, we Pixar right now. Listen, bro. Listen, bro. Listen, like My Hero again. Like when it's good, like when it's popping, it's like, oh shit.
No, but
when it's on downtime, it's like, what the fuck am I doing here?
All right, Adam, hold on.
Oh wait, no, bro. First you say My Hero's too fast. It just jumps from one thing to one thing. Now you're saying that's too much downtime. What is this? It's so hypocritical.
I think the slice of life adds variety to the story, right?
It hardly has any slice of life. It hardly has it.
Outside of them fighting, you can actually see what they do in their spare time. I don't think the slice of life is like the best thing ever. I think I've read some slice of life manga. I think they obviously do it better than My Hero does, but I can appreciate it because it adds that variety to the story.
Yes,
and these characters aren't just meatheads. They don't just scrap all the time. Like Jiro, like playing the guitar, it's like an actual hobby, right? And like she actually does stuff outside of just, fighting people and training.
Otherwise you end up with Naruto and you have so many characters who aren't developed since the training exams and yeah, King, come on. We're really gonna do this. We need this development. It's short.
And we really developed the My Hero Academia characters so much going to each of their bedrooms.
Yes, we did. That was characterization.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It may not be like the hugest thing, but again, you get to see little glimpses of the personality. Like Ioma's room was like all glitter.
See, but in One Piece, that's not done. You don't get like a chapter devoted to, let's do characterization now.
Yes, yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
It's integral to the story itself. It doesn't feel like a one-off chapter in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, I would argue the Foxy arc.
No. Because Horikoshi, right? The reason why, and I said before, this guy has very good fleshing out of character of characters, and he can extend those moments fairly well for several chapters. But Horikoshi has no other choice because on the other side, his world building pales in comparison to other shonen manga. World building is pivotal.
No, it's not, bro. Stop saying that. Stop saying that. You can have a story. Oh my god.
World building is pivotal in a lot of stories, especially when stories are adventure stories. But My Hero doesn't have those elements of world building. Like My Hero, from a world building standpoint, it's okay. It's all right.
Man doesn't do world building.
Bro, you do not need world building in a story for your story to be great.
But world building is an element of story nonetheless.
Yes, it's a lot of things that elements, but you can have a story about somebody at a boy in his desk, and if you write that story to perfection, the story will be great still. It's about the writing.
How do you write a story with a boy in his desk? Like bro.
Stop trying to pick up out the example.
No, but this is not
what I'm saying.
That's not wrong though. I mean, if you say like there are a lot of stories out there, novels, short stories, whatever, where like there's not anything that would be like thought of as like world building. You know what I mean? Like you focus on a particular maybe conversation or instance or whatever, and that's what you do, and it's a great story. Like so.
I'm going to give a solid example here about building. Okay, about world building. Has anyone here ever read Old Man in the Sea?
No.
Not a manga.
Yes, Hemingway. Yeah.
It was nothing but world building, and it sucked. It was the most boring thing I've ever read because that was all it was.
Okay, so but why are you using Old Man in the Sea? I'm talking about in general, but like why are you using Old Man in the Sea? Because I don't like that novel either. I think it's trash.
Like it was nothing but world building and imagery. That was what.
I got you.
You just can't have world building and then just let's just have world building. That's it.
Since we're on
but world building, along with pacing, along with character, they're all elements of storytelling. And
but you don't need every element to have a great story.
I'm not saying that you need it.
But you're trying to downplay My Hero because you're saying One Piece has world.
I just told you the reason why Horikoshi has to focus on these other elements more so than let's say other elements.
It's not that he has to. He chooses to. That's the story he wants to tell.
But the thing is,
he has very very little world building, bro.
He doesn't need world building in his story. Why would I write a story that doesn't need world building in his portion?
I want to interject.
What do you mean? Wait. They exist in a world. They exist in a school setting. They go around Japan.
Time out. Hockey. Conquerors hockey. Time out. Time out.
You're not world building over story.
Chill, both of you. Listen, all right? I'm here to stop the war. I think what's important is that when you compare My Hero Academia to One Piece, and we're talking on the topic of world building, what is important to note is that in this one situation, when we're talking about this one aspect of these stories, One Piece has had years to put together world building. It has been the king for such a long time that it doesn't need to worry about rushing and putting that stuff in there. Whereas Horikoshi, even though he's 200 chapters in, we know how Shonen Jump works. We know that any day, look what happened to Bleach, right? Where all of a sudden they're just like, oh, it's over. You have 6 chapters to wrap this whole thing up. And I think Horikoshi has seen his peers go through this and understands that every chapter, every day is precious to him. Whereas Oda can take his sweet time because he's been allotted that after years and years of doing things right. Now, I think ultimately we've had this debate on a bunch of other live streams about his editors maybe not, hankering down and saying, maybe you should, cut this stuff with Flampe and make this, this fight another 10 chapters long. And I don't think really the editors have been doing their job in the way that they needed to, which is not to say the editors are bad. I'm not a manga editor. I would try to be. I'm sitting here just talking about anime and manga. But my point is that I feel like Oda has that already. He has the luxury of being able to take his time with this stuff. And so if you're into the world building, you can appreciate it because you're able to just, read it for what it is. Whereas you look at My Hero Academia and Horikoshi needs to stuff all of this into these arcs, these 6-chapter, 7-chapter arcs, because he doesn't know if the next day is going to be there for him. His next chapter isn't guaranteed in the same way that Oda's is. And I think that is a very important distinction with this one specific thing that we're talking about.
I think My Hero Academia already has like a lot of characters. When you look at 1A and then you have all of 1B, he hasn't introduced anyone from the second year. He's only shown us 3 people from Mirio's year, which is obviously Mirio, Tamaki, Hado, and then you have like the other schools like Shiketsu and Katsubutsu. And so if he did more world building and he went to America, that would just be way too much, and then he'd be falling into the trap with Bleach and stuff like that.
To be fair, I think America would be dope. I don't think it'd be too much of America.
Hold up.
What'd you say, Brago?
I think going to America would be dope. I don't think it would be too much.
He did set that up in the movie, though.
Yeah, exactly. I think in time they can go there. I don't think it's a bad thing that it hasn't gone there yet.
I don't mind it going there, but I think they should do it after they develop most of the characters at least.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Look, and this is what I was going to get into before King went on a rant. But listen, when it comes to One Piece, at 200 chapters, we didn't have no world building. We didn't get proper world building until just before Jaya, when we had the meeting with the warlords. That's when we really felt the weight of the world. And that was literally 230 chapters into the series. Before then, we would have 1 chapter or a few panels dedicated to showcasing the Marines alone. When it comes to One Piece, world building wasn't something that was heavily emphasized. It's just something that's set up over a long period of time. And with My Hero Academia,
this is not the case. This is not the case at all. In the first 200 chapters of One Piece, there is substantial world building. Absolutely.
How so?
Because the story, the fact that you have the East Blue, where you go from island to island, and then you get a sense of the characters that exist in the East Blue, and then you have characters like Don Krieg who venture off into the Grand Line. Then you have Seth, who has written a story about the Grand Line. And then Don Krieg wants his book so he can transverse the Grand Line. Then you have people for the first time like me, I'll be interested to the story. Then you have them stay in their dreams after Arlong Park, where if they go over the reverse mountain, then they get slammed by a whale, super creature for the first time. Like Oda's establishing the world. Then you have the giants Dory and Brogy for the first time, and how their history spans across centuries, literally. Like there's no way, bro. Like there's absolutely no way you can say that.
What about
absolutely no way? The world creatures that in the East Blue were thought to be myth and legend are appearing one after the other the moment it hit the Grand Line. The first 200 chapters does world building, and it does world building fairly well. And then on top of that, when you're getting the story elements, I mean, well, to be fair, the pornographic stuff wasn't something that was like strongly indicated until later on in the series, but the world building elements were definitely there when it came to expanding upon the world of One Piece. And then again, when it comes to character elements, like, again, this is where I think Horikoshi has better character elements when it comes to character development. Fine, absolutely. But for characterization, Oda is just as good, if not better, in the first two chapters. Because when it comes to characterization, a lot of the characters in My Hero are predicated on the notion, like I said before, of becoming heroes. Whereas when it comes to the main cast of characters, I never said it was anything wrong.
But you're making it sound like
I was going to compare it to the One Piece characters, where the One Piece characters and Luffy does an excellent job of this in Arlong Park, where he states to all of them that are there, I can't snipe, I can't lie, I can't use sword, I can't cook, I can't navigate, I can't do shit.
But let me tell you,
the only thing I can do, the only thing I'm good at, is kicking ass, and that's it. He lays out his whole character scheme right there in Arlong Park. Very few characters can lay out their own character scheme
everybody
right there for you.
The world of My Hero is a superhero world. That's the setting. Everybody wants to be a hero, and each of them have different reasons for wanting to be a hero. Different characterizations. So what are you talking about?
The villains are the exception.
And that's a whole different area of characterization. So what are you talking about?
Right, but I'm talking about the main cast of characters. When you put the main cast of characters, the main cast of characters
each have different reasons for wanting to be a hero.
But they want to be heroes.
They don't have the same reasons
on how to be a hero. Like Jiro wanted to be a hero, and the way they did it in the culture festival
is the same for all of them, bro. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that when it comes from a character, again, One Piece is an ever-expanding story. My Hero Academia is not. I'm not saying that's a bad thing because people like it.
Let me tell you something.
The story is still well written.
The world of One Piece.
I never said it wasn't. I never said it wasn't reading it, bro. Because
the story has work. If you want to keep it real, Black Clover's been better than One Piece for the past year.
Oh, fuck it, shit.
That's real. That's not a joke. That's not a joke. That's coming from people who haven't actually sat down and read the series and just heard Asta yell for first 2 episodes and said, "Oh, it's trash," but haven't actually read the series.
Pretty crazy. I have to say, I have never agreed with King so much as right now.
So is everything better than One Piece the last 2 years?
Hold on.
That's the Promise Neverland for damn sure has been better.
Yeah. Again, people, wait. I want to clarify this.
Who's seen Isekai smartphone?
I want to clarify this for the chat again, because people are first off. This is very entertaining. This is incredibly entertaining to hear everybody just go off. It's super fun. So people are like, "Oh, why are they doing this? This is so toxic." No, man, this is clearly entertaining. This is fun. This is a stream I would sit down and watch. So that's why we're doing this. But you also got to remember, again, for as heated as things are getting, this is all in good fun, people. Do not, even though it sounds like we're all taking this personally, we're YouTubers. We like to build things up and hype things up. It's fun. It's part of the fun. So don't take anything that anybody's saying too personally. We're discussing a manga series, an anime series. It's not that big of a deal. World War III is not going to happen because One Piece.
I don't know, Roger. I don't know, Roger.
I haven't slept in 24 hours either, so
maybe that's why you said that garbage that Black Clover's.
No, that's not garbage. Go read Black Clover.
Put some respect on Black Clover.
Go read Black Clover. Shout out to Aston, one of the best rivalries in Shonen right now.
To be fair, maybe one day, but I just never watched the anime. Hell no.
King. Here's my issue with what you're saying, right?
Okay.
You talk about the characterizations about Luffy and the Straw Hats, but here's my issue. At the start of One Piece, they're actually characters. You look at the Nami, Robin, Frankie, and all of these Straw Hats from the time skip, and even from the time skip till now, it's been 300 chapters, 400 chapters, and we haven't had a single change in terms of characterization for the Straw Hats. The same Straw Hats that entered the Fishman Island till now, they're still the same. That's my issue. You look at those characters, the Straw Hats, they haven't changed a single.
No. Well, I already told you before that when it comes to character development, Horikoshi's better. Like I said that. I said that clearly.
You were talking about
Horikoshi is better. Characterization wise, the characters in One Piece, when you look at the first 200 chapters, I would say that the characters are better. No, I didn't say that. I say he's better in character development.
Dustin,
I said that.
Really?
He's better than characterization.
I don't really. Can you explain that? Like, out of the 20 kids in class,
one of the greatest strengths of My Hero that goes unnoticed all the time is the detail Horikoshi, the little details that he puts into every part of the chapters of when it involving characters, like the fact that Deku does air chairs through all his classes so he can strengthen his body so that he can accept more of the percent of his body.
Deku's the main character. I asked you about
Endeavor? What about Endeavor when he gave the flower to Ray?
Oh, he did twice.
Like, and the flower was like the flower he gave was the one on their first date, and it was very subtle. Like, he only did it in like one panel, but it shows you that Endeavor's very insightful and very
even Lock, who got developed in half a
very much.
To his family.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. As far as characterization, if you look at One Piece, each one is miles ahead of anyone in Class 1A as far as characterization goes. As far as development goes, the way One Piece is built is them developing the world as opposed to the world developing them. I mean, if you look at how My Hero Academia functions, it's basically how these kids are being shaped into heroes by the events of the society around them. If you look at One Piece, it's the new newspaper came out. Look, now Luffy's a Yonko. It's crazy, and everyone's going nuts. It's them developing the world further.
Without spoiling Roger, what Suyu did at the end of last chapter, Orpheus can attest. I called that she was going to do that. Why? Because Horikoshi let us know earlier in the series.
Who are you talking about?
The frog girl. The frog girl. Horikoshi let us know.
You're talking about a superpower.
No,
I'm not talking about.
No. What you're doing is trying to tell me what I'm talking about without knowing what I'm talking about.
Well, that's the problem. You're not getting your point across.
No, I'm not getting my point across because you're interrupting me while I'm trying to get my point across.
All right, let's tone this down a little bit. All right, so hold on. So go ahead, get your point across, and then Nux, you can respond.
Without spoiling Roger, what Asuyu's doing at the end of last chapter, I said that she was going to do this 2 chapters ago because of what Horikoshi set up in her character from the beginning of the story and what kind of person that she was, how she's very observant, how she always is thinking and calling out things and asking questions straightforward and being honest. So you knew that she was that type of person to do what she was about to do.
I'm still waiting for you to tell me what you're
telling
talking
you
about.
without
I don't know what you're talking
spoiling
about.
Roger.
I'll mute myself real quick. Go ahead. And then somebody just type in the chat. I'll mute myself real quick. Hold on. Go ahead.
When she said that she had a plan, I told when in my stream 2 chapters ago in discussion stream, I said Suyu's going to be the one to come up with the plan to help them win this battle. Because
it's funny you mention that. Because if you pay attention to how all the fights are going with the major groups in Hero Academia, it's always the girl in the group that's coming up with the plan, or Deku. Momo comes up with the plan.
You don't want a girl come up with a plan?
She can do whatever she wants. It's not brilliant characterization to an individual character. There's always that one smart person in every group that'll come up with a plan. Momo's group, Momo will come up with a plan. Froppy's group, Froppy will come up with a plan.
No, it's not characterization. It's not characterization when somebody just does it out of the blue. It's characterization when it's set up in their character prior,
how is it,
and then they do it later. That's characterization.
It's characterization. It's not characterization if you make every single character smart, or if you make 5 kids smart and the smart kids come up with the plans. If it actually fit to her character,
to be fair,
all right, bro,
you're character.
But the thing people like about My Hero is the fact that not all the characters are super complex, but that Horikoshi has a lot of them, and he gives each of them little moments. I think the anime does it a bit better if you're watching the provisional license exam. Like, the way they do it is like they give like characters like Ojiro and like what's his name, Shoji. They give them moments, and they gave Ayoma a moment and stuff like that. So
Aoyama, best boy.
Yeah, each of them just has like a little moment, and then you just get to know them there. Like, people, like, I think Horikoshi is expected to develop every single one, and sometimes it's difficult to make the distinction between who is the main cast and who is the supporting cast.
I'm not saying I dislike the characters. I'm just saying as far as characterization goes, there's no comparison between One Piece and Hero Academia. That's it.
But again, One Piece has had a lot more time to develop and expand upon the characters, right?
I'm not saying character development. That's something else. That's what King was talking about earlier.
Exactly.
But character development is Chapter 1, we have a character. Chapter 200, he's now a totally different person because all the events that shaped his life. That's character development. Characterization is what goes into making that character, and that will be his character traits that he draws through the entire story.
I mean, it's like when you look at a character like let's say Luffy, for example. Luffy, Ace died, bro, and then Luffy still needed Zoro to tell him, "Yo, stop digging around." In Punk Acid.
And that's bad characterization.
No, that's bad. No, that's no.
No, that's bad. Yeah, it's bad character development.
Development, my man.
So from a standpoint, you're very hard pressed to have character development in a series like One Piece. But for characterization, like for example, like Ojiro in Class 1A. I don't know. What about the Invisible Girl?
Toru.
I mean, well, Zero.
Sero doesn't do. Okay, I'll give you.
What about Kirishima? What about Bakugo? What about Todoroki? What? It's like you're picking out.
There are characters he
not naming
could
the characters
expand
that are.
on more, but there are
Look,
ones where I think he's developed them extremely well, like Kirishima, like Todoroki, and like Bakugo. But there's some way he
like
needs a bit more
twice.
improvement.
Like it's characters
Twice
like
as amazing.
side characters that get development. They get whole chapters dedicated to them. Manasa, like you're picking on the 3 characters in Class 1 they got the least development, but then you're not mentioning the 10, 12, 15 other characters that got it.
Real quick, can I also say one of the big differences between One Piece's characters and between My Hero's characters, we got like 20 main characters at once. It started with One Piece, we got Luffy, and we stayed with Luffy for a while, and then we got Zoro. Okay, and then we got Nami, and it was enough pacing to slowly flush out each character and give us their characterization. Like, again, that's not a luxury Horikoshi's really had.
Well,
No.
I'm actually glad you brought that up. I'm very
that's his own fault, though, right?
because I was actually talking to Mr. Connexi about this because this is like his biggest problem with Shonen. That a ton of characters are introduced at the same time, and then it's like you don't really know what you're doing with all of them necessarily. So,
Fair.
like
There's
in
nothing to
Naruto,
do.
for example, in the Chunin exams, they introduced a ton of characters. And while he did a relatively good job with some characters during the exam itself, after the exam was over, Lee lost everything. He was an amazing character throughout, but they just couldn't keep him up. Lee, Neji, basically all of the support characters introduced during that exam, he couldn't maintain them. And Horikoshi's doing a much better job as far as maintaining the class, slowly developing everyone while giving everyone their key moments. But at the same time, he introduced 20 characters at the same time. He has to do it right. While One Piece did a great job introducing the Straw Hats, giving each of them an extremely defined characterization and no comparison.
One Piece introduces a lot of
It's safe to come
characters
back
at
now,
once,
right?
though.
I'm good.
Look at the Big Mom family.
Is it safe to come back? You guys are good? I'm good?
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess
welcome back.
can I respond to that quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the issue that I have with One Piece, and it's not like the One Piece that you're sort of talking about, like the early stuff. Like to me, that's like that. I guess if you want to call it like the first half, like pre New World, I guess if you want to call it that, like that stuff is phenomenal. Like the Straw Hats are getting like development like throughout, and it's wonderful to like watch and read, and it's just beautiful. And then after that, it's like they're just stagnant. I'm like, what's going on with Zoro and his like character development? What's going on with Nami and her character development? What's going on with Chopper and his? It's like they just stopped. It's like Oda just stopped, and he's like, and it's not to say that he's not focused on other characters, because I think he is. Like we get stuff with Law and all these other characters. That's great, but I think the thing that bothers me is like, why can't you develop your protagonists while also developing your side characters? Why can't you do that? Like, you have time, dude. You have time.
I think there's an issue when Zoro still hasn't asked Luffy about what happened in Whole Cake Island. Like, I think that's an issue with the character writing when it comes to stuff like that. Like, this is the main character.
I feel like that's for bigger reveals. That's just for the hype.
We'll give Oda more rope. We'll give Oda more rope.
All right, you want me to make the exact same argument against Hero Academia?
Let's hear it.
None of the students knew anything that happened in the Overhaul arc or the Stain arc.
Yes, they did. No, they were spoken about it, but again, that was a mission that they weren't allowed to say, because if that comes out that Muriel lost his quirk and that Night Eye died, the society is gonna, like, people are gonna panic and they're gonna freak out. And so in that sense, I guess they kind of had to keep it under wraps. And I believe that when they came back, when the four of them came back, it was Deku, Kirishima, Tsuyu, and Ochiko. They went through, is chapter 163. They come back to the house, and then there's a little panel, right?
Tell
the
him,
dorms,
son.
and
Go
they
ahead, tell
say
him,
like
son.
they're basically going through it, and they're saying like, oh, we had to go through all these processes and stuff like that. So I'm gonna assume that they're not allowed to say anything. And even the fact that when Deku looked at the news after he was in the hospital, they didn't even say anything about Overhaul. Really, they just said that like the truck burnt down. They weren't even sure if he was dead. So like, you probably couldn't tell anyone anyway, just in case that info leaks out, and then everyone goes crazy about it.
Hey guys,
I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, if you look at Luffy's character, he's not the bragging type. He won't say, "Well, I just kicked Yonko. I just beat up." Like he doesn't do that ever.
Luffy's situation in Whole Cake was a lot more on a grander scale. He was fighting against one of the strongest people in the verse. Obviously, the stuff with Sanji happened. Like, there was a lot of, like, there was a lot more bigger...
Time out real quick, time out.
It's funny,
real quick,
he didn't
Sun
even
Patch,
have
wait,
5
time
minutes
out,
to
time
talk
out,
to
time
Zaro.
out. Sun Patch, I heard you wanted to say something. You said you're going to have to tag out?
Cheers.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for joining us regardless. You're going to pop out. We're bringing somebody else in. We got a lot of people waiting in the wings right now to get in on this. We've been sitting at a 10-person call for the past hour and a half, and there are a lot of people with their own thoughts on this. So, Sun Patch, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. And
yeah, I also have to leave soon.
Nux is going to be hopping out, all right, too. So we're going to have 2 switch outs. I think the people who are going to hop in, Joten is hopping in. He's gonna throw his towel in there, talking some One Piece, and then I think we have somebody new who's hopping in as well. Foxamar12. He's an international YouTuber with over 80,000 subs who loves One Piece.
Very nice.
So I think, you know what, we'll tag out some of the My Hero people, tag in some of the One Piece people, and we'll be good to go. Let's keep this conversation.
Yeah, actually, I have to dip in a bit too.
All right.
So.
We've got
all right.
this reverie call is ridiculous because I've got all these people DMing me right now like, there's no room in the call. There's no room in the call. I'm like, well, now there's room in the call. There you go.
Well, Roger, it's been a pleasure. King, nice to meet you. Dustin, keep up the opinions. See ya.
Oh my god.
Shade.
Bruh.
Oh man, that's fun. While people are switching out, really quick, I'll read out some donations. People said they wanted me to read some donations to change the pace up. We got Lieutenant Smash donating, saying only women in One Piece with better development have 400 to 500 chapter leads. Think about that. Also, being a fight junkie is a personal problem, not a fault with the show. My Hero Academia is based IRL. There's less to build upon. Remnock donated and said, "Big Orphe, I love you." So that must be one of your subs, Orpheon.
Yeah,
and
one of my friends.
Doc Diablo saying it's only in US and France where One Piece low dips My Hero. France is where people read the manga the most, and it's impossible to compare the two. My Hero is good arc to arc, and One Piece is good overall because My Hero, every arc there's a big fight, but One Piece is never necessarily like that. So all right, and Joten just joined the call.
Yo,
welcome.
What's up?
My
What's
friend.
up, everybody?
Welcome. All right, so real quick, just while everybody else is getting in here. General thoughts, general impressions. Which one do you like better, One Piece or My Hero Academia, and why?
Naturally for me, because I'm not fully caught up on My Hero, because I have a secondary channel where I react to the anime, but I'm about to catch up to the manga. But I just like character-driven series more, so I'm gonna have to give it to My Hero. But since I'm caught up to One Piece and not My Hero, I'm gonna have to be on the One Piece side just a little bit. I'm more so neutral than anything for both these series, but I do gotta say, you guys are fucking crazy.
Hold on. Wait.
Yeah, we're not Disney, man.
What's going on?
Oh, you guys are crazy because you guys are using characterization in a way that is not even meant to be used. It's like we're living in 3055 with how you guys are explaining how characterization is. So let me explain to you guys how characterization is supposed to be. Characterization is basically intertwined with development. So what you guys are stating is characterization for a character who's just introduced, and because of a character that's just introduced, it can't get developed. Therefore, meaning that you have to basically put out all their characteristics on the table so you understand what the character is about. However, the weaker the development for a series means the weaker the characterizations, because at the end of the day, characterization is just a device used to explain the developing characteristics of a character. That is what characterization is. So when you guys were like, well, characterization in One Piece is better than My Hero because it doesn't work like that. Like, if you guys say development is weaker than One Piece than it is in My Hero, then that means characterization is also weaker too, because it's intertwined. You just can't separate the two. So when I was listening, King, stop.
That's my God. That's not true. Dude.
Dude, that's literally how it is. That is what characterization is.
No, because
Like so you made a really good point with Luffy when Luffy said, "I'm this, I'm this, I'm that, but I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not that." That is one point of characterization, but that's a character explaining how he is. But then after that, there's developing states towards a character, and that gets intertwined with development.
No. The reason why you separate the two is because character development tends to be from the mental aspect of the character, not the physical aspect of the character. Characters go through actual character growth. They actually grow and develop as characters.
But growth is development.
Now,
how can you separate the two?
Because character development tends to be like a mental aspect of the character. Like think of Thorfinn from Vinland
That's development.
Hey, that's the goat manga.
That is development cut and dry because character development is from a more mental aspect of the character. Like mentally speaking, Luffy doesn't change all that often. He changed, but as the story progresses, he has to continue his journey and get stronger, and he has to go through new experiences and maybe gain some. People say he's a little bit smarter now. Fair enough, whatever. But there are elements of that character that do grow over time. Now, I want to say it's development because there's no mental element to that. Like for example, Jinbei as well. Jinbei as a character, we find out more about his character. We find out how he perceives the world around him to a much greater degree in Whole Cake Island, for example, and how that bond with him and Luffy continues to grow. So the character interaction elements between characters, the character growth elements between characters or within a character, and the characterization elements of said character, you can all put them as character development. But when people say character development, they mainly mean the mental component of the characters and how that changed or doesn't change over the course of time. Again, Ace died, and Luffy did not change mentally at all, but he changed physically, most definitely. He grew from that standpoint of realizing that his friends were very important to him, and he needed his friends to keep him in reality, to hunker him down. That's what Jinbei did. Like, what do you need? What do you have? You have your friends, my Nakama. And so he goes through 2 years of time to train to become stronger and better. But still, mentally, he still dicks around for Caesar Clown can beat him. You see what I'm saying?
Here's the thing, though. Like, I understand what you're saying, but that's why I love you, Cole, because you're like 50-50 on this. You're like half right and half wrong.
See, that's
the thing
perfect.
was,
Just
okay.
like the like to dislike ratio before we got started. That's perfect.
Well, I mean, you should have saw this coming. First of all, you got the two biggest series in the world. And you're like, you know what? We're gonna put people, and then we're gonna talk about it, and it's not gonna usually work out well.
It's gonna work.
But here's the thing, Cole. Like, you're half right in the sense of like, okay, so with Jinbei, we never knew what Jinbei was about as a character into Whole Cake Island. So that's where his characterization comes from. So now he can develop because now we know who he is as a character, where we didn't know who he was before. We obviously knew who Jinbei was, but what made him tick? What made him go? And that was introduced in Whole Cake Island. So I understand what you're saying, but you're looking at it in a way that characterization shouldn't be looked at. And that's also, like, I think a big misconception when people look at characters, because when it comes to development, there's 2 stages of development, right? There's physical development and then there's mental development, with mental development being the most important thing because that's what people want to see from characters. And you made a great point with Luffy. Luffy has not changed at all. I mean, for the most part, here's the thing about One Piece that's like really interesting, right? A lot of the characters, actually, I could say pretty much all of the Straw Hats have not changed very much, or if at all, since the introductions. Because what Oda did was, like, think about it. So when Nami was introduced, right, she got her arc soon after, right? Same thing with Zoro. Well, Zoro, you could say possibly might get
Chopper
his, like,
for sure, though. Chopper for sure.
Chopper definitely, right? Sanji just got his big break with the Whole Cake Island. But even when Sanji was first introduced, he had the whole thing with the Barate and everything like that, right? And then with Zoro, with the characterization, with Zoro's like, I want to become the greatest swordsman in the world, and then got beat by a butter knife of Mihawk, right? And that humbled him, right? So, like, Oda does these characters where, like, he introduces them, then gives them like a little arc, introduces them in their characterization, and then either they get a bigger arc later down the line, like Sanji did, and now Zoro, or a lot of their development goes in that one arc, like with Frankie or with Chopper. Whereas when you look at My Hero, they introduce these characters, and then they get developed further on from that point.
Like I can't spoil it because like some people haven't seen the anime, but they haven't finished the manga. But like to come off of what Jotan was saying, like Endeavor, for example, like he has that subtle development. So like when he was fight like the All Might versus All
so
for One fight,
that's actually fair game. I've read through that for the read through, so we could talk about the Endeavor arc.
Okay, so like All Might versus All for One, you had like Endeavor yelling at All Might, and like you got to see more about how Endeavor feels about All Might as a character and about the gap between them. And then as you slowly go on, you had like the arc with like the kids, the remedial course, and like Todoroki was there. And Endeavor, then he was speaking to Todoroki, and he was like, "Whoa, okay, you know, I need to become this." He was speaking to All Might. He was like, "Okay, I need to become this next symbol of peace." And then that was like chapters like 166. Then like fast forward to like 20 chapters later, and Endeavor finally gets his big moment and the big payoff, you know, against the fight with the Nomu and stuff like that. So it's very like the My Hero Academia develop. Same with Bakugo as well. With like you know how like Bakugo slowly progressed.
Characters in the series.
I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
I do agree though.
Bakugo's
Saffron Kaizoku in the regular chat just said, bruh, Oda's waiting to dedicate arcs to the Straw Hats. He's talking about the post-time skip arcs with like Wano and Zoro, Whole Cake with Sanji and Nami and Brook, and maybe other arcs later on in the future, like Elbaf will probably flesh out Usopp's story more. But I do think that the arcs were sort of separated like that pre-time skip because it was the building of the crew, right? We had like Water 7 and Enies Lobby was the dedicated Frankie characterization arc, and we got more of Robin during that arc as well. Thriller Bark being with Brook, and even Fishman Island with Jimbei. You could make the argument, you know, right after the time skip happened. I do think that there are arcs dedicated to character stories, but I think Oda's really good at juggling both, like building up these characters and making us understand them more, or making them change in the case of characters like Robin and Usopp, while still building out the world. But he's doing it in, I feel like, a much more subtle way than what Horikoshi's doing. Because I think Horikoshi builds out the world, and I'm not saying he's bad at it at all. We've talked about this already on the stream. But I think Horikoshi builds out the world in the way that he does because it's the way that My Hero is set up as a story, right? We have this hero association. We have the League of Villains. It's integral to the story to build out the world, to explain who the top heroes and the villains in the world are. Whereas Oda is able to space it all out, right? We have Skypiea. He was building out the world subtly with Haki when we didn't even really know what Haki was. We had the introduction of Mantra, and it was still this sort of like new mystery. He brought up the Yonko 400 chapters before we even met one of the Yonko for the first time. So, you know, looking back at how the two of them developed their stories, it still does seem like you get those character-focused arcs. It's just that other things are happening in the story, you know, when those other things are being built out, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, you make a lot of sense with that. But I think, like, comparing, or at least putting my One Piece to My Hero is, like, really, really difficult because... First of all, putting One Piece against any series, just in general, literally, besides maybe no, I can't even say that. Never mind. It's like really difficult because Oda writes in a way where no other author writes for shonen. Because when you look at every other shonen, can we really say there's another shonen that writes world building like Oda does? Like most other shonen are character driven and it's character centric and character focused. Like for a big example, right? Like My Hero Academia, their world building is completely dependent on the characters and their actions. Whereas One Piece, like the history of One Piece is already set into the world themselves, and it influences the characters and their actions.
I think that comes down to how One Piece was set up at the start with regards to Roger, and how that's like that was a trigger for certain events to happen that had to happen. Whereas My Hero, the big event being the number one hero and all of that, didn't happen until midway through. So the fall of All Might as the number one hero, this is where, if you really look at it, the true beginning of the story in terms of the world at hand is being explored by Horikoshi, and we see that with Endeavor. And to be honest, I really did think Endeavor was gonna die during that confrontation with the Nomu.
Oh yeah.
So when you have these
let me talk to chat real quick. You guys are right. Hunter x Hunter is on that level, but there's a difference between One Piece world building and Hunter x Hunter world building. Like Hunter x Hunter world building doesn't do world building like One Piece does, because One Piece takes a couple chapters to do world building, and then Hunter x Hunter's like, I'm gonna give you 15 paragraphs and like 3 speech bubbles. So like it's like you can get world building that's about 2 chapters worth of One Piece and 1 chapter of Hunter x Hunter. So like that's why I didn't even have Hunter x Hunter on my mind when I was thinking about comparing One Piece to anything else. But you guys do bring up a good point.
While we're on the topic of One Piece, though, I also want to acknowledge somebody else who just joined the call. We got Foxamar12 in here. So I just really quickly want to give him an introduction before he gets started in this conversation with One Piece and My Hero. I also got to say, Foxamar, I greatly appreciate your Shokugeki no Soma avatar. So I wanted to bring that up. Hold on. Wait. Wait, you sounded like a robot for a second. Are you good?
All right.
All right. So while he's fixing his mic, let's get back to talking about One Piece My Hero. King, I saw you dipped out really quickly and dipped back in. Were you about to say something?
I don't know. My mic is kind of fucked, so I'm not.
Man, everybody's microphone is like messing up today.
Is my mic? Am I talking?
No, you sound fine.
Listen, here's what I think.
Because my mic is fucking up. Like sometimes I'm trying to talk and then sometimes it's not working. I'm like, fuck, it's like kind of in and out. So I don't know what's going on there. Yeah. No, I mean, the only thing I just wanted to say is that world building wise, the only series I can think of that kind of did things like One Piece was Toriko. But Toriko ended. It's done. And then when I think of other series too, that like for some reason, all right, and I need to recheck this, but for some reason I feel like the world building aspects of My Hero mimic that of Hitman Reborn, but I can't fully because I'm forgetting here because the way I see the power
because I don't really see it, but let me know what you let me hear this.
Yeah, no, because like I'm trying to think about how the Vongole Primo and the powers of the sky, if you would, kind of like all the ring powers, kind of like they're almost like the quirks in a sense, but they only apply to like a set amount of characters, whereas the quirks apply to all the characters in the world. But it's just that because again, like I'm trying to think because character-wise, clearly the main character is different. I think they're similar at the beginning, where Suna and Deku, you can kind of say they are similar at the beginning, but Suna kind of never really changes towards the end of the series, whereas Deku's clearly changing the best year.
That's the thing, though. Like, Suna does change, but since Amano wants to be like, hey, I'm trying to be funny here when she really isn't that funny, at the very last chapter decided to go, I'm just going to throw away all the development Suna had in the very arc. Final arc, and go back to what he was. But he did change. The final chapter was just like, we're just going to throw that away.
The One for All and the Vongola powers are really similar, like when they have the flashbacks.
Right, that's what it was.
Like the recent chapters and stuff like that, when Deku's having the flashbacks. That's very similar to Vongola.
One of my favorite chapters is when in My Hero Academia, where Deku actually sees the predecessors of
spoilers.
Oh,
dude, that was like a million years ago, bro.
He's not talking about the recent stuff. I think he's talking about
the tournament arc where he's fighting the one dude that can like brain control you, he saw the descendants in the hallway. Like that was possibly I think the closest thing you get to like Hitman Reborn, because Suna was like, where am I? And then Suna sees like all the bosses and you're just like, oh wow, this is kind of this is intense, right? But that's like the only thing I've seen like that's close to Hitman Reborn. But I do understand what you're saying, because it's like for me, Hitman Reborn, the entire world was built about like the actions of Giotto, which is the first, and then it gets changed up by Ricardo, which is the second boss, because Ricardo completely, you can say Ricardo's more influential in the entire world than Giotto. But getting back to the main topic, it's like My Hero, we don't really understand what the history is with these heroes. We just know one day a baby was born that was luminescent, and then that's it.
Yeah, fair.
There's some. Okay. Are you caught up to the manga?
No, not yet.
Okay. I won't spoil it, but like there's stuff in the manga that expands upon that a lot more.
Recently,
a lot of foreshadowing with like in the Overhaul arc and stuff like that.
Okay, fair enough.
Especially towards the end when they show Overhaul's backstory.
Cool. But I mean, I think ultimately speaking, like what Jordan said before, if you prefer more character-driven series, then definitely, yeah, like My Hero is where you're going to prefer. But to say, because again, I think I'll say like last time, character development, because I'm separating the two. Character development wise, I would say that yes, definitely My Hero is better, absolutely. But for the character development, characterization that you get in One Piece, I think it's pretty damn good compared to My Hero. Like if My Hero is, let's say, at 8, One Piece is like a 7. But then on other categories, I think One Piece is overall better, whether it's storytelling wise or
what about fights?
No,
I'm so glad you just said that because that's literally so time out. Because that's exactly. I was waiting for that transition. Thank you so much for that. I was just about to say, let's talk about fights because we've been talking about world building and characterization for like almost 2 hours now, and I do think that it's interesting because again, this is one area where My Hero is more of a battle tailored manga to that of like a world building manga, but I do think the fights in One Piece are still genuinely exciting and great. So let's talk a little bit about the fights. Let's talk about comparing the fights, which you prefer in terms of the choreography, just anything. I really do want to move the topic to the fights. I'm so glad you mentioned
One Piece fights barely have any choreography to it. Like I think the most choreographed fights for like One Piece would probably be like Zoro fights, and then the rest are just slugfest. And don't get me wrong, like I love a good slugfest, but it gets to the point where every single fight can be ordered down to a slugfest. It kind of just gets like old, you know. Whereas My Hero Academia, I'll just say like One Piece. Here's the thing: if you read One Piece for the fights, you're doing it wrong anyway.
Right.
So like the weakest aspect of One Piece is the fight. So I think there's like no competition for My Hero Academia. Like that's just an easy win in that category. And that you can say like the majority.
I agree.
A lot of the fights in My Hero, a lot of them haven't been. A lot of the best ones, in my opinion, they still haven't been animated yet. Like the one that's coming up, and then the next couple episodes, the Deku.
right.
That one, the fights in the Overhaul arc as well, and the recent fight with Endeavor. Like once those get animated, I think it's fairer. But again, a lot of the One Piece fights we've seen, like Luffy versus Lucci, Luffy versus not Luffy versus Katakuri, but like Luffy versus Dofi, Luffy versus Usopp, they've all been animated, right? So it's hard to compare them to like the best fights in My Hero, which are the ones exclusive to the manga. So
even if you look at like a manga standpoint, like from a manga standpoint, like, and I think this is the main difference like, when it comes to fights, because I would say, right, because I'm almost caught up to My Hero. I'm like again two chapters behind, but even though I think My Hero has better fights on average, right? Mm-hmm. Because One Piece focuses more so on clashes, like Marineford War is just full of clashes.
Yeah.
Right.
But the thing here is when you do have actual solid fights, the only solid fights we've had post time skip come from Luffy, really. Luffy, the main character, did have Law. So like here's the thing, there are mainly slug fights, but then when you look at Law and Smoker, that wasn't a slugfest. That was like that was pretty intense the way that kind of panned out. And then Law kind of outwitted Smoker, got the heart of the mess, and then Smoker was out.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, then you have Virgo and Smoker. So you do have good fights when it comes to the main cast. The main cast, it's mainly Luffy against the big bad, and that's really it. But from a fight standpoint of manga, what My Hero has that you can kind of say makes it better in a sense is it has internal dialogue with the characters, whereas One Piece doesn't have that. Like One Piece, you never really have Luffy think about, okay, so he's doing this, and the internal monologue gives you better context of what's happening in the fight. In My Hero, whereas One Piece, you don't really have that. But I would say the content Luffy's does in manga. I think it's one of the best fights in the series. I think it's fantastic.
To be fair, the One Piece fight, the My Hero Academia fights, like a lot of them are quite symbolic in the sense, like obviously the All Might versus All for One, and then when you get to like Endeavor versus the Nomu, I think he says some dialogue about like the Nomu being like a monster and like how it like represented him when he was like, you know, an abuser and like stuff like that. And so when he defeats the Nomu, it's like, okay, I'm getting rid of my past, and it's like a subtle detail you wouldn't really notice unless you like really looked into it a bit. And then you have stuff like the Kirishima fight and the Overhaul arc. I try not to spoil it, but like, you know how like Kirishima, like the way he comes out of that fight,
right.
And like it sort of like feeds into insecurities and like his backstory. Like I think the fights in My Hero, they do have a bit more meaning and they're like more character driven. And a lot of people say they're just like flashbacks, but like I think there's a bit of versatility. So you have stuff like All Might versus All for One, where it's just like, okay, we'll throw a few blows, like a backstory, throw it in there a little bit. And then we'll be
but you can find symbolism you have
like Deku versus Gentle, which is like extremely well choreographed, or like Deku versus Bakugo 2, which is also well choreographed. So My Hero,
of course, but you can find meaning in any fight, honestly, in One Piece. I mean,
No,
in any fight, you can just search for it. Like, look, you shall find. Like, it's right there.
But here's the thing, it depends on what you personally think is more important, because you said My Hero has more weight to their fights than One Piece. But the thing is, it depends what you find to be more important, because in One Piece, the fights, literally the results of the fights in One Piece affect the entire world.
Right.
Whereas My Hero Academia, it affects just the character. So there's more emotional weight behind My Hero fights. Whereas there's
Sometimes
more.
like Overhaul was much bigger than just like the characters.
But I'm just talking about in general.
Right.
Generally speaking, it's more of an emotional. It's more so like a Naruto in a sense, where like the fights were more emotional, at least in the beginning of Naruto versus Shippuden. Whereas One Piece is like this is the fate of the world depends on this fight. Like it's a clash of ideals in One Piece, whereas My Hero is just a clash of, besides Stain, just
Zoltan, but let me tell you.
So wait, real quick. So just look at Dofi and look at Luffy, and then look at what those two characters symbolize. And when they fought, how in the sense you could say they were fighting in the sky, where Doflamingo was, but Luffy was, when he had the King Kong gun, he superseded the Tenryubito. He superseded the Sky Demon, and then he slammed back into the ground, symbolizing the downfall of the Celestial Dragons from that standpoint of bringing their reign crashing down. You can find the symbolism in so many fights if you really do look.
But I never said you can't find them. Like, but
this is more so for Orpheus. This is more for Orpheus.
I was about to say, because that literally went to the symbolism of the entire world of One Piece. That is the downfall of the royalty of the world of One Piece.
Here's the thing that I was fucking lost my train of thought. But when it comes to My Hero Academia, the characters, what they do in their fights can't affect the world because they're still students. They're not even supposed to be getting into fights. But I feel like once they do get their license and once they're able to actually fight as professional heroes, then we'll get to see those fights that affect the rankings.
But it's still not even that. No, but
Kirishima. But it's My Hero Academia, bro. It's in the title. Like, hard pressed.
But the way he sets it up, right? Like
honestly,
the Kirishima versus Rappa fight. Like, I think Rappa at the end of that fight, like, he brought Kirishima back in the stretch, and he was like, "Okay, next time we meet, I want to fight you again." And so you can indicate that as foreshadowing, right? And Kirishima says he wants to get stronger from that, and you see him training afterwards. And so from that, you can sort of like get the idea that, end of series, like Horikoshi setting up these little fights now with Kirishima's getting his fight now, and then his final fight may be something else later on, and it'll tie back into the stuff we're seeing like right now.
But that's how One Piece is, though, too. I think a lot of the fights tie into other bigger fights, like exactly what King was just talking about with Doflamingo. Like the repercussions of Luffy beating Doflamingo led to the versus for Yonko arc that we're in right now. With all the stuff that's happening in Whole Cake Island and in Wano Country, that's all because of the linchpin that was the Luffy versus Doflamingo fight. So I would say
not even that too. When you have big news Morgans, Luffy beat crap. Oh my god, he was the one that led. He jerked him off hard as fuck and gave him the title of Yonko or Emperor.
Well, that's the thing. That's literally why I said it depends as for you as a person. What do you find more important to you as a person? World building or character driven? Because that's something that you can't really objectively say is better.
Yeah, no.
Because it depends on the series.
Right, but also think about it as like, okay, but then here's what I had before. Like, I think this is where me and Dustin kind of really conflicted. It's like Dustin made it seem as if like I never put world building, like I put world building ahead of a character, but I didn't. I think they're equally as important. I think they're both equally as important. That doesn't mean that you don't need world building to have a good story. Like, you don't need world building to have a good story.
You don't. That's true.
But at the same time, a story needs world building to kind of flesh out the world which characters reside in. So look, when you look at My Hero, the setting's the academy, and then the city around them. And then we have hints of what's going on with other cities and other nations and stuff like that. What heroes go on there? Like, world building is an aspect of storytelling. That's just a fact.
But going back to the fights, though. Wait, real quick. Going back to the fights, though, is I think the difference for me, at least, because I like the fights in both of these series, obviously. I think the difference is that My Hero's choreography, to me, is unquestionably better than One Piece's. Like, without a question, it's better. You look at the way the Deku versus Gento fight was handled, and that is not even like a big deal fight. And that's still a beautifully choreographed fight from beginning to end. But I think emotionally, One Piece, hands down, aside from a few exceptions like the All Might, All for One kind of thing, without question, One Piece takes the cake. I think because of what we were just talking about, the stuff with Luffy versus Doflamingo, because of the stuff that happened with Luffy versus Lucci, I think even the Usopp versus Luffy fight at the beginning of Water 7, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily.
Luffy was possibly the most
Dude, I mean, the Luffy versus Usopp fight is the perfect example of how to do an anime and manga fight, because it's building upon the characterization, these two clashing ideals, and the choreography I actually think is really well done for that, because you're laying out things that have been set up for 300 chapters of the way that Usopp knows he cannot take down Luffy, but he's going to try his damnedest to sort of throw out all these traps to at least try to stop him and prove his point. And so I really do feel like emotionally, 9 times out of 10, One Piece takes the cake, but choreography wise, My Hero is still better overall. But I like them both. Yeah. That's not to say that one is better than the other. I'm just saying those are the things I like.
But not that much better, honestly,
I think it depends on. Go ahead.
I guess like for me, one reason why like I love sort of like My Hero fights is because usually, when it comes to those kind of fights, like at least now, like you have this large cast, right? So there's always more than like the one like main battle that kind of has to be won by the protagonist or whatever, and like within those battles under that, like with the other kids and stuff, like you don't really know if they're going to win those battles. One reason why I love like let's say like the right stuff with like Ida and Stain and Kirishima and stuff like that is like they lose. Like this is not like, you know what I mean? It's like these kids like it's like these battles, like unless it's like the title fight or something like that, where it's like, yes, like if this doesn't if they don't win this particular battle, like it's over. Like it's over. Like if All Might doesn't beat All for One, it's over. You know what I mean? And like so we understand that, but with One Piece, what happens to me a little bit too often is like I know the outcome of those fights. Like I know that generally if the Straw Hats are going against this particular force, they're going to win that general battle because they have to be able to move forward, because the story has to progress in a certain way. So to me, that's what kind of like bugs me, at least when it comes to like the cast of My Hero, I guess. You're
referencing to be clear, you're referencing like the final fights of each arc, right? Because of course Luffy, it is almost predictable that we know that Luffy's going to lose his first fight against the big villain and then come back with the second fight. Like we saw this with Luffy versus Crocodile and sort of went on through the story. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I think with My Hero, it's like it's not so much about those big fights. Like it is, but it's not. You know what I mean? It's like yes,
I'm confused.
Okay, hold on. So a lot of the fights, I think a lot of the fights for me when it comes to My Hero, they're not about like if I don't beat this particular force, they're going to take over they get like
the stakes are lower basically, so it's hard to predict the outcome.
Yeah, it's like
with Deku versus Gentle is the best example of that.
Like Deku versus Gentle is not about that. Deku versus Bakugo is not about that. Ida versus Stain is not about that. You know what I mean? It's like most of those battles aren't about like, oh, if we don't win this battle, like the world will end. It's like, yo,
it's a lot more internal.
You can make that argument. But you can make that argument for the start of One Piece when it was going on in its early chapters, because the world wasn't there yet.
Yeah, no, exactly. The difference is the difference is like with One Piece,
not that too, because like the world was there, but the thing about it is that Luffy
they have to win, otherwise they won't progress to the next
the
next place or the next stage.
That's not necessarily true.
Come on, really?
No. Okay, first off, look at Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji against Aokiji. They took a hard fucking L. They took a hard L. Aokiji spared them because of what he owed Garp. They took a hard L there. They took a hard L against Kuma and Kizaru. Rayleigh came in there. They still lost. And they got split apart.
I do understand though, but I understand where he's coming from. Because I understand where both of you are coming from, but I do think the Magellan stuff, the Marineford stuff, I think all of those were the end of the first half of One Piece, right? That was the end of the saga. That wasn't going through the minor villains. Whereas My Hero Academia is doing that right now. Exactly. And if you look at the end of the saga of One Piece.
Again, no, because, see, this ties to what Jotun said before. It's like, My Hero, when it comes to fights, One Piece is not, even though it's a battle shonen, the fights are kind of secondary. Yes, even though you think they're primary, they're actually secondary. Because, again, we have moments, if you just scratch away that anything like Sport Archipelago, passed, all right, just screw that. Luffy and Zoro lost to Rob Lucci. Luffy got stuck between a building, and then Zorga was thrown to a chimney, and then they had to go into another arc to finally beat those two. Again, they lost to Aokiji, so it's not like, oh well.
Don't forget that Luffy got bodied twice by Crocodile too.
Bro, what I was bringing up earlier with we expect Luffy to lose something.
But he comes back and he wins. I'm talking about the hard L's, like
Magellan. You're talking about things like Magellan and Marineford, and I understand that. Sabaody Archipelago.
Again, but when you exclude those how can you beat Rob Lucci? So it's like the thing about it is that when it comes to the fights themselves, the fights, even though they lose, they still. The whole point is surviving. Like, have you ever thought of the reason why, like, Luffy and company, even though they can kick Marines' asses, they choose to run away in the first place? Is because at the end of the damn day, they can sit there and fight. Okay, that's fine. But they'd rather choose to just continue on their journey and reach their goals and destinations and not deal with that shit. Because that's not the purpose of the story. That's goal is to really become the best hero. He literally will be the best hero in the world. All right, that is his number one. And it's very similar to Hokage. I'm going to be Hokage, the strongest ninja in the village. I'm going to be the greatest hero of all time. One Piece is completely different from that standpoint. Being the Pirate King is not predicated on being strong. It's finding the One Piece.
But being the symbol of peace is nothing to do with being the strongest either. Of course, it's to do with. Of course, it does have.
But you have to be the strongest to be the symbol.
But he has to be the strongest because All Might is the strongest.
Okay. Let me rephrase that.
Okay. We were all like, wait a minute.
Okay. He does have to be the strongest, right? But there's more to it than just being like a meathead. He has to.
Of course.
He has to find some self-confidence.
But it's predicated still first and foremost on strength. If you don't have the strength to maintain peace, then how can you be the symbol of peace?
Here's the thing,
you need strength to maintain that.
Here's the thing, I wouldn't say it's all predicated on strength. It's similar to the Kage status in Naruto because, you look at the Kazekage, he is trash, but he's not the Kazekage, the Mizukage. Right now, he is absolute garbo, but he's still the Mizukage. It's more so predicated on what you're able to accomplish than anything else for My Hero Academia. That's why My Hero Academia has the ranks. Who is the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. It's more based on what your achievements are, what you're able to accomplish, and what you're able to get done in your career, rather than just being the strongest. It could be tied in and associated with who's the strongest, but you don't necessarily have to be the strongest to achieve the number 1 spot. Which in the world of My Hero, it's the symbol of peace, apparently.
Look at One Piece. It doesn't matter how strong you are in One Piece. It comes down to how much of a threat you are to the world government. That's how it works.
But they're hand in hand. They're again. It's I'm not saying that this is the only element, but again, with being Hokage, the Hokage at the time, the notion was the Hokage is the strongest person in the village, and the Hokage has the responsibility to defend the village from oncoming forces, but at the same time also manage the village, make sure everything's running smoothly, make sure people are okay and everything's fine. It's the same notion where when you look at All Might, right? All Might in the past, let me say in the past, All Might in the actual story, he comes in there are villains that they can't take care of. He comes in there, he does his job, he saves people's lives, he has a smile, everybody loves it. And then he goes on his merry way until the next situation, the next thing. The symbol of peace has to have the backbone to be to make sure that peace is maintained. If peace and stability are not maintained within the world or the city or whatever it is, right? That symbol, that foundation is predicated on his ability to get the job done. And how you get the job done? Well, you have to be someone that is significantly powerful. If you are just a symbol of peace, because again, it's being the number 1 hero.
Luffy going to be the Pirate King if he doesn't defeat all the Yonko?
No, he doesn't have to defeat all the Yonko. He doesn't have to. Look at Roger. Roger didn't beat Big Mom.
See, this is a conversation I feel like we have on every One Piece stream. Even is does Luffy need to 1v1 these Yonko?
No, understand that. In One Piece, whatever's going on in Raftel, in order to find Raftel, all you need are the road poneglyph. I've asked the question myself too. Does Luffy need to be the strongest person by the time he reaches Raftel? And the answer is no, he doesn't, because the journey is in tune with finding the road poneglyph, and then all the poneglyph will then mark where Raftel is, right. And then he will arrive at Raftel, and then he will become whatever's going to happen doesn't happen there, and then he becomes Pirate King. Pirate King is finding the One Piece, but if you want to be the symbol of peace, you need the power to actually have the backbone to maintaining said peace. Again, All Might, as far as we know, he was the strongest dude, and he got weaker over time because of certain situations. But All Might, even when he fights the Nomu for the first time, right? He says, back in my heyday, it would have taken like 5 punches, or like I think it was 10 punches. 6 punches. Back in my heyday, it would have been easy. So we have a clear understanding that All Might was godly. With one uppercut, he parted the clouds and shit. So what the fuck?
Yeah,
no hero comes close to the power that All Might has. No hero. All Might is literally he's on top of, he's the zenith. He is the pinnacle person strength-wise. The only person that came close was All For One, his arch nemesis. So the whole point here is that when Deku becomes the number 1 hero in the world, he will also be the strongest person.
Well,
I feel like I feel like that's a good point. I feel like ultimately, it does come down to perception, though, right? It's like I think the perception within both the community, but also within the One Piece world, even if you look at what just happened with Big News Morgans, right, is that when you are titled something, when you're proclaimed to be a new Yonko, there is a certain, I mean, people expect something from you, right? There's like a power level expectation that comes from the title of Yonko or comes from the title of Pirate King. Whereas you don't necessarily need to be the strongest in the One Piece world, and you kind of do need to be if you're going to be the number 1 hero in My Hero. I do think the perception in either, even if it's not the case and Deku isn't the number 1 strongest by a country mile, I still think it needs to be perceived by the general public that you're the strongest, which I think was one of the big points of this Endeavor arc that just happened, right? Is that Endeavor knows he's nowhere near the level of All Might. He knows that. That's why he was so aggravated by then, like, he basically became the number 1 hero by default, right? Is he wants to be seen genuinely as just the strongest hero within the verse. But it took him and Hawks working together to even attempt to take down that Nomu that they were fighting. And so people are still, they're learning to trust in Endeavor. They're learning to see him as the number 1 hero, but they've been used to All Might being that symbol of peace, the strongest character in the verse for such a long time that
that's what I'm saying.
The perception of the world is changing.
Being the number 1 hero doesn't then automatically make you the symbol of peace.
Right, yeah.
All Might is the symbol of peace, as far as you know, across the world of My Hero Academia. All Might, Endeavor is currently the number 1 hero, but as Hawk said before, if it was actually based on actual votes, like real votes, then it would have been Best Genius. Best Genius would have been number 1 because he'd have more votes. I mean, when you look at the top 10 guys in from the hero list, they have a fucking washing machine.
I mean, they do washing. That's right.
It's like,
That's by strength. It was by popularity and public image too.
Right. The symbol of peace is different than the number 1. Okay, Joe, I'm sorry, go.
That's why, I want to go back to what you said earlier, because like what you're saying is basically what I was predicating to. Is like, it's not for My Hero, is not necessarily, because the thing is, the symbol of peace is literally a brand new concept within the entire world of My Hero, because that was a title created with All Might. With All Might, like that was never there before, right? So that's relatively a new thing for the the overall world for My Hero. So like that's what I was saying before, when it comes to like becoming the top heroes, all you need is achievements and popularity. Whereas in One Piece, is like you actually have to physically go out there and compete for multiple things.
I mean, the title Pirate King didn't.
Right. What you're saying though is
did not exist until Roger. It was just a group of pirates.
But what you're saying, Jotun, is it goes back to what I was just talking about too. Is that it's not just a power thing in One Piece, right? It's you have to not necessarily beat. Right. It's not saying that you shouldn't beat somebody to get the title. It's that there are other factors at play. Whereas in My Hero, it seems like it's just becoming the strongest. Whereas in One Piece, it's like amassing territory, getting a fleet. All that kind of stuff plays into the title, as opposed to just like a 1v1 fight. But when the fights do happen in One Piece, this goes back to what we were talking about with like the Luffy Doflamingo stuff, I do feel like it impacts the overall story in a bigger way than it does on average in My Hero Academia, because the fights don't have as high of stakes.
With the exception of
All Might, exactly.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
But I feel like as the story progresses, obviously we all agree that the story as it progresses, there are definitely going to have moments when those stakes are going to be a lot higher as we progress the story. Because I feel like it's going through that same phase that One Piece was, where it's now Like Oda was developing the characters, the Straw Hats, and now we're developing the MHA characters. But when he's done developing most of the MHA characters, it's going to focus on the world, the more grander scheme of things, and that's when we're going to see that similarities to One Piece.
But you see, that's the thing. That's assumptions, though. We don't know how Horikoshi is going to write this, because he can literally have the characters develop and then they become professional heroes.
He said
and
he wants it to be concise.
I mean,
He
we
said
could
he
kind of
wants-
see a little bit.
Yeah,
you know,
but
with, like, for example,
but
the
the thing is,
movie.
story.
Yeah,
He
but
doesn't-
what's
he said
what's
he doesn't
concise?
have the
Here's the thing.
stamina for a One Piece style story.
Yeah, like what's concise to you isn't what's concise to Horikoshi, which is why I think like a lot of people tend to get confused. Like what you see as doing the right thing for a story isn't what he sees as doing the right thing for his story.
Which is true, and I think that's maybe why people were getting upset that we were like, why are you comparing One Piece and My Hero? Because there's all this time left. Horikoshi can go in a bunch of different directions. But I still feel like even though the story isn't over, I mean, the story of One Piece isn't over either. They're both continuing. I mean, people say, oh yeah, the story of One Piece is 80% over. Sure, the story might be, but the actual amount of chapters is nowhere near that. They're already planning the 30th anniversary in Japan. Let's be real. So like 80% done. That's goes back to that meme video I did where it's like, why you always lying? Because it's not happening. It's not happening. It's not even. We're not even close yet. You know what I mean?
80%.
Yeah, it's not
80%, bro. Stupid.
So we've been talking for almost 2 hours, no, a little over 2 hours now at this point. We have a lot of things still to go over that we haven't even touched. We really just touched on world building, characterization, and now fights a little bit. But one thing I want to discuss is the way that the world within each of these stories perceives the quote-unquote superpowers, right? The differences between devil fruits and quirks, and how both of these authors look at these powers and how they amplify their characters using them. So obviously, devil fruits and quirks are both a means to an end, right? It's something that gives a power to an individual. You know, Luffy eats the Gomu Gomu no Mi. He has rubber powers. Deku has a strand of All Might's hair and gets his quirk. But the way that the world of My Hero sees their powers is very different from how the world of One Piece saw the powers early on to the story. If you remember 200, 300 chapters into One Piece, it was still a rarity for people to have devil fruits. Now we're in the new world. Now we're at the point where everybody has a devil fruit power. You know, someone's grandma will have a devil fruit power. A little baby girl on an island can pull mochi balls out of her cheek. Everybody has a devil fruit power. It's like, you get a devil fruit. You get a devil fruit. But
the way they set up,
hold on, wait. I want to finish my. Hold on. So I'm getting
Okay,
somewhere
go
with
ahead.
this though. Is that with My Hero Academia, it's part of the society that the majority of people now have quirks. So it's interesting to compare these two stories and see how these authors are crafting their stories, knowing that they look at superpowers in such a different way. So okay, go ahead with what you were going to say.
I will say this though, and I'm not. I want chat to understand this before they go on a rampage. I'm not saying quirks are better than devil fruits, but quirks. When you look at the two series, quirks are definitely more important than devil fruits, because with devil fruits, you don't need a devil fruit to be relevant in the One Piece world, as long as you have hockey. If you have hockey that's at a prominent point, you don't even need a devil fruit. And like you said before, in the beginning of One Piece, it was a rarity for devil fruits to even be a thing. Right. And a lot of these characters were being challenged with characters without devil fruits to begin with.
Whereas
My Hero, if you don't have a quirk in My Hero, you are useless in My Hero. Like, look at Deku. Deku was treated like trash.
That was established through the beginning of the story, right? Right in the opening chapter.
Right.
Deku says, all people.
Which is why I find this whole argument to be kind of weird.
Tells it, All Might literally says, you can't be a hero without a quirk. Imagine Deku trying to beat Bakugo in a fight without his quirk, and he's just using his fist. Like, it's not going to happen. It's impossible.
It would end up like Usopp versus Luffy. Let's be real. So that's
the hockey. The One Piece took a while to establish the hockey, right? I don't think that'll ever happen with My Hero, where they establish that type of system, because it's been, set up since the beginning that, you need a quirk to be powerful. The world is unfair. That's just how it is.
I mean, but what if they have? I'm going to say about the My Hero Academia characters is, with the My Hero Academia character, you have to train your quirks. Every second arc or every third arc has been all about strengthening your quirk. That's like Horikoshi predicates a lot of time and dedicates a lot of time to enhancing those abilities. Whereas One Piece, you rarely see Luffy training, let alone the enemies of the other characters. Whereas with My Hero Academia, it's a very integral part of the story to have Deku and the rest of the cast grow together and train.
Well, but here's the problem. The problem is that, and I don't know why Roger went this way. I mean, like I kind of understand why, but
Right, yeah,
it's just odd because it's like One Piece is more so of like a Hunter x Hunter system where, and that may sound odd, but the problem is that with the power system in My Hero, it is very cut and dry quirks. They are the foundation of most of the powers within the world of My Hero. But if you look at this, let's say One Piece, you have at least 3 power systems. You have Haki, you have Delphi, then you have base power. So base power meaning Kenpo, swordsmanship, Kenjutsu, you have snipers, you have all these different types of power schemes in One Piece. And then you go deeper where you have the different system where you have the Paramecia, you have the Logia, you have the Zoan. Then you have the subcategories of Zoans, where you have Mystic Zoans,
The quirks do have-
Zoans, Carnivore Zoans.
Now, if you go
then
to
you have
the
hockey, then you have observation hockey, convolutional hockey. Like the systems is Oda has a literal tree where it's literally like a system that branches off. And when it comes to success in One Piece world, meaning how powerful you are or how far you can go to the journey, like Jotun said, you can have amazing base power and hockey have no Delphi. Like for example, probably Shanks or Mihawk, and you're good.
And you're good.
So when it comes to the depth and the brevity of the powers, Horikoshi can spend his time focusing on quirks because quirks are all that there is. But in One
we don't know that. I could definitely see.
Not yet.
I could definitely see a system for that 20% of the world that doesn't have a quirk. I could see him developing a system similar to hockey where they could fight against quirks. And when in terms of like you said, zone and all that, we have there's emitter quirk transformation.
Yeah, that hasn't been.
Honestly, I think
you're fair. There could be more coming.
That's more of how they classify the quirks. But really, when you go through the volumes and stuff like that, he doesn't really like classify the quirks as like specific types. At least not how I see it.
No, because the quirks
in the anime they kind of
quirks can be seen very similar. Because quirks can be honestly seen in a similar light to the Delphi Paramecia category, and then special quirks can be seen as the Devil Fruit Paramecia special category, like Katakuri, where he acts like Logia. And then all My Hero does, then it dives into that one system and then has the mix and matches between the two. Like some powers are stronger than other powers. You know how, like, for example, Endeavor, because he's heat, we know that some family members, they can't handle heat well. So there are some mix and matches between there when it comes to how those quirks intertwine. But again, from a power-based standpoint, One Piece is more similar to Hunter x Hunter than My Hero is more... I don't know.
Definitely. I mean, the discussion ended up going in the direction that I wanted, which was, is there going to be an equivalent of hockey within My Hero Academia, and which of these power levels you prefer, right? Do you like it where it's almost like a rarity, or do you like it where everybody has it and it's like more focused on the story?
There was something in the provisional license exam. You know, when Kami comes and obviously it's Toga, but she hides her presence, right? And that is something that hasn't been explored in the series ever since. But I feel like Horikoshi's leaving breadcrumbs in that regard to introduce more power systems and abilities further on into the story. And whether I don't necessarily believe that's related to a quirk thing, but it's interesting to see in that regard.
Okay, but Yonko, My Hero. Wait, really good. But Yonko, my guy. I mean, the problem is that when it comes to power systems, and we see what the case with Mirio loses his quirk. Mirio, we know because of his training, right? He has a certain degree of skill outside of his quirk because he trained for that. But it's also because Mirio's quirk is kind of predicated on his own mental state and his ability to kind of free fall through things. And he had to be at a mental and physical point to do that. But then there are other quirks, like, for example, the invisible chick, I forgot her name.
Tor.
Who cares? Like, does she need to be strong? Does Ochiko need to be physically strong? No. You can just hone the quirk and be good.
The thing My Hero does well that I think it has over one is not to do really with the system, but it's how they show the quirks effect. They show the powers affecting the people, right? So if you look at Twice and how his quirk, basically he used it for leisure, right? He was like, I'm going to clone a bunch of me, and then, you know, one of you can do the dishes, one of you can do the laundry. And then if you remember the backstory and you see what happened, his quirk basically ended up taking him over. He didn't know who he was, and he has this, you know, mental illness, like breakdown thing constantly because he doesn't know who he is. Like, and then the way you have Kirishima, how his quirk relates to his personality as well, right? So for the majority of the story, he's like, oh, I'm a super tough guy, I'm super manly. You get to his backstory, and he was insecure his whole life, and you see how the quirk sort of contrasts with his personality, right? So he can like make him his like outer body stronger, but then you see his like flashback and you see him on the inside, and he's a lot softer than you really think.
Well,
that's
definitely
all
hold on,
true.
let me say something real
All right,
quick.
go ahead.
To go on like the possible new powers of My Hero Academia, I think it's more logical to see how My Hero Academia is framed as a series, to say something similar to Smile will be in My Hero Academia versus Hockey, where there'll be artificial quirks given to the public that don't have access to natural born quirks, rather than Hockey, because it just makes more sense that way. Because one, it's a business model, because first of all, the whole world is predicated on the business of heroes, and two, when you have the public buying your stuff, then the society can grow as well. At least Japan's society can grow.
And I think we've kind of seen that in a little bit with My Hero with the boosters, right? Like that's covered a lot in Vigilantes, but we saw it obviously was a big part of the Overhaul arc as well. And even on the topic of Vigilantes, since we're talking about like the quirk enhancing drugs, we do have a character in that side story. We have Knuckle Duster, right, who is quirkless, and he's dealing with the people he's dealing with people who have quirks, but he's still sort of holding his own, despite not having whatever this world's version of quote-unquote hockey or whatever their additional abilities are going to be. So I just wondered if we're going to end up seeing that, even though we've already seen characters like Knuckle Duster who can hold their own.
Well, the problem I have with that is that I have never read Vigilantes. So
the way the Vigilantes frame...
No. So all I'm trying to say is that concept doesn't exist within, or it's seldom, very rare, does it exist within the actual story of My Hero, rather than a side story or an alternate story. So the thing here is, I like what Jordan's going with that, and we have seen the boosters too. Absolutely, right. There is a chance that you could have all for one, because we saw in the flashback where that's a spoiler. My bad. So let me not say any more with that. But again, because like, I don't want to spoil cats, but this is reminding me of something that I really wanted to bring up here.
Okay.
And it's something that I'm deviating. So I'm taking over the stream. So it is what it is. Here's the thing. There is one character in particular that I think is a problem character for My Hero, and that's Eddie. Eddie, I think, is I think she is like the serious version of Aluka in Hunter x Hunter. And Aluka's a big problem in Hunter x Hunter. Like her character existence, I think, is detrimental to the story. And I see Eddie the same way. But I know folks like the overall arc. But that's one of the reasons why I think the arc is as good as it should be, because Eddie's character exists. You see, if Mirio had to live his life without any quirk and still become Lemillion and still be a hero, then he had to be kind of like Batman, where he had to, or that one guy you said, like Knuckle Duster. So has to hone his own abilities, has to hone his own physical strength to be this amazing hero. And then that would actually kind of go against what we saw, because Deku has a power. But if Deku didn't have a power and he would still be a hero, then that would be the kind of path that Lemillion or Miro would have to take. But Eddie exists, and so at some point we know in the future, she's just going to reverse his time and give him his powers
back. But you don't know how that's going to play out, right?
Of course.
First of all, Aizawa tells Deku, right, that they cannot rely on Erie's power, and then you have to look at the laws within the society, right? They just can't abuse someone's quirk to do that. That would completely mess up the system, and people would go crazy about it. So I could see in the future maybe the government find out about Erie's quirk, and they have to lock her up or some shit like that. And it causes controversy within the society. But you also have to realize that even though Eri is going to train her quirk, she still won't be able to get it 100% perfect. And so you could envision the scenario where she does give Mirio his powers back, but he only gets them back. So he gets them back, but he gets his quirk back, but he can't it's not like the way he had it when he first completely trained it. He has to completely train his quirk from the beginning again.
That's fair, but he still has his quirk back.
Yeah,
I mean, again, so for example, right? Aluka Hunter x Hunter. Spoiler alert, sorry. Gon powers after he does, Super Gon, he goes back into his original state at the beginning of the story, and then Jin tells Gon, "Nah, just chill, enjoy your life, do what you got to do." So yeah, like those powers tend to come with some type of like downside to an extent, but the downside is completely mitigated by the benefit. If Miro had to live his life without a quirk and actually become a hero, now that's something special. Now that's.
But again, the way Mirio was pulled out of the story, right? With a lot of people, they liked how it was done, but the first time I saw it, I found it quite annoying because of the fact that Mirio was a huge obstacle for Deku, and now the person that was closest to becoming number one just gets zapped out of the story, and it makes it easier for Deku. But now that Erie's going to give him his quirk back, it's like, okay, finally, Deku's got another rival, someone that can push him over the edge a little bit more. So in that sense, I don't really think it's a huge
right. Yeah, but then you're seeing that. Okay, right. Which I think I agree with you there because that's the parallel between Mirio and Deku and how. Okay, fine. But when you look at Mirio's character specifically, within that character is now at some point in the future, he's probably gonna get his quirk back. Now the quirk may be different in some way where like he has to completely he has to go through some training again to get to where he used to be, but Mirio, before he lost his ability, was already at an extremely high level. Mirio already has gone through that mental fortitude where he's able to go through, the earth, if it would, as if he was free falling. He's able to, and all he has to do is regain that stuff. And
I mean, it's the same thing with Gon because it's like a reset for Gon.
No. But instead of regaining, I would prefer if Horikoshi said, let him go a whole different route. Take him another direction entirely from where he is now. But because of Aries' character's existence, like with the Luca, that's not going to happen because we all know.
But if Mirio,
all Hunter x Hunter fans know that at some point, Gon's gonna get his Nen back. It's happening. When? Not too sure. But if the story took another route with Gon, that'd be very interesting. But probably not. So again, like all I'm saying ultimately is that I think her character is problematic in a way. I hate using that word because that's a little bit SJW of me. But hey, it is what it is.
It's not even
that. Again, if Mirio didn't get his quirk back, right, and he did what you said, King, where he gets like gadgets and like becomes like just fighting people with his hands, wouldn't that kind of like I can't say retcon, but it would like invalidate like what Deku was at the start of the story, where All Might said you can't be a hero without quirk.
That's what I'm talking about. That's that good shit.
Yeah, but what King is saying is that Mirio breaks the stereotype of you can't be a hero without a quirk. That's what he's trying to say.
That's what I'm saying. That's that good shit. That's that good shit.
Wait, so BMC, hold on. BMC, you were going to say something, so go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I think a lot of people sort of miss often is like, is that, it's like, yeah, you can be a hero, but like, the whole story is about looking at different, looking at different paths to being a hero and different ways of doing that work. You know what I mean? So it's not always about, I got to like fight this bad guy and then beat the bad guy, and that's what makes me a hero and everything like that. It's like the work that Mirio does in that like with the music and with the whole sort of school festival stuff and everything like that, like that's hero work, right? Helping Eddie work through her trauma, doing all those things. Like, that's hero work, and he does not have his quirk.
Saving people with that, you're saving people without actually like defeating a villain is a creative way to do that.
Right. So it's like you can still do different types of work, and that work is not it's not less than the All Might like punching through a building or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that stuff's important. So that's why I say just because he gets his quirk back doesn't invalidate like the experience that he's having right now.
Oh, no. Like I never. Like, I'm not saying. At least I'm not trying to say that it invalidates it. And I do see you're saying that. And yeah, fine. Like like you can because in that sense, kind of like a firefighter saving lives. That's a hero. Like even if they have no super.
Yeah, totally.
That's same thing. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I got you there. All I'm saying is that there's a chance for Horikoshi to go deeper than he's ever done before.
I got you.
Probably not. That's all I'm gonna say.
So I'm gonna sort of shift the topic a little bit because we've been talking about fights for a while, and this is something that this is gonna hurt a lot of feelings, and this is gonna be a very subjective discussion.
I'm down.
So
Let's
just
do it.
keep this in mind. Again,
go.
this is all
boys.
subjective. This is subjective. We're not stating anything as fact. I wanted to put that disclaimer right now because this is definitely going to get people mad. Let's talk about art. Let's talk about the actual art of the chapters, either when it comes to fights or just the art.
Are we talking about on like a week-to-week basis?
Not week-to-week necessarily, but just in terms of what we prefer. In terms of what we prefer.
Can we skip Listen, man, I'm not trying to listen. I don't even know a lot of you guys, but I don't want any of you guys to get jumped in the street or get killed. Can we skip this?
No, that's kind of what. That's the point, right? Is that if that is
art has this like Oda's art has this like pop to it, and it's very like cartoony, I guess you could say. But he's very unique in the way he does it. I think Horikoshi has like a distinct style, just like Oda does, but he does try and shoot for more realistic, like
here's the thing.
Character design.
I feel like My Hero's a little bit more modern. Like it is evolved. Like it's almost. I think I prefer My Hero Academia's art, especially towards the end. Like if you look at like the overhaul arc, like the Kirishima, pretty much everything from the Tamaki fight up until the end of the overhaul arc in My Hero Academia. You look at the Endeavor fight that just happened recently. The art is extremely well drawn in those chapters and is very consistent as well. I think the One Piece art is good, but it doesn't like it's not.
So you actually just brought up something. The main reason why I wanted to talk about this is I feel consistency-wise, actually, One Piece is better. I think the moments, the highs of the fights in My Hero Academia are gorgeous. Like, I think if you look at like those Endeavor chapters where we had Endeavor versus the Nomu and the stuff with hawks and the feathers, those chapters are unbelievably gorgeous. But if you just take a moment to look at Oda's backgrounds, second to none, man. I mean, even like the opening spread of Wano Country, regardless of how you feel about the way that he's been telling the story, bro, like when we did that live reaction during Anime Expo where all of us were in the same apartment looking at it on the big screen, and you see that Oda spread of like the main village in Wano Country, second to none.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think background's Oda's better.
That's the thing. When it comes to
better.
I feel like Oda has a lot more variety. Like the way his art style is, he could do so much more with it. Look at like the admirals; he can make them so much taller, and it just works. I feel like that wouldn't work as well in the My Hero verse, where things need to make sense. It's like realistic to our world, so everything kind of has to fit a certain design. Whereas Oda could literally do anything. Like look at Kokoro, look at the long neck tribe, look at the long arm tribe. He could literally do anything and get away with it.
And there are moments of that totally within My Hero Academia, and that's not to say My Academia is trash. Not the case. My Hero Academia is beautiful, but I think if you look at the background of almost every panel in One Piece, and he's been doing this for 20 years, there are hints to other things. There are inside jokes. I mean, there are things in the background of panels in like the first 5 chapters that come back and have come back recently. I guess it wasn't the first 5 chapters, but it was pretty early on in the story. Like the Carpenter, right? The Carpenter character who was a one-off little Easter egg drawing in an SBS that is now like a character within a Wano Country that Frankie's working for. That's insane. That kind of stuff is absolutely insane. And Oda excels at it. So,
dude, is Panda Man still a thing?
Panda Man's still a thing. I'm shocked, honestly, we haven't seen a Smile Panda user Panda Man within Kaido's army, but I'm sure it's coming. So
I think One Piece does the Easter eggs better, but My Hero does have a couple of neat things to it. Like I can't spoil it too much in the recent chapters, but like Bakugo is like angry and he like bites. He's like so angry he bites the speech bubble. There's
that's his character. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's great stuff in it. Yeah.
There's the opening page of one of the chapters in the Overhaul arc. I think it's like 157 or something. Overhaul's like reaching his hand, and like Horikoshi draws Overhaul's hand, and his fingers are used as like page breaks. Or like there's one chapter when Deku's like studying or whatever. They're in the class. And like Deku gets the answer wrong, and Horikoshi draws Bakugo smiling in the background is like, haha, I can't believe you got that wrong.
I like the subtle references to like to Marvel and DC that Horikoshi does. Like for example, when Mirio is holding Eri is like a symbolism to like Batman and Robin.
Yeah. Well, like some of the covers of the chapters, like there's one of Twice and Toga dancing, and it's like I think someone posted on Twitter like months ago where it's like a reference to a Joker and Harley Quinn.
Yeah,
and there's like when Mirio, there's like a color spread during the Overhaul arc, like right towards the end. Mirio's holding Eri, and that's a reference to Batman when like Robin died or whatever, and
Oda references Robin's
body.
Well, here's the thing: what people need to understand is like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Right, so it really comes down to what you like in art. Like I prefer My Hero art over One Piece art, but like there's no competition when it comes to Oda and his backgrounds. Like there's just one, mainly because most shonen artists don't even draw backgrounds for the most part, and if they do, they're nowhere near as detailed as Oda. So that's like one major point. But at the end of the day, it's like it comes down to what do you like more? Do you like character designs more, or do you like overall art more? And I'm more like the character design.
I feel like it comes down to is like in the One Piece world, it's left up to Oda's creativity. We see this new world that we've never seen in our world, whereas everything in the background of My Hero, we've all seen it. It's like our society almost.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
Yeah. It's relevant to our society.
And it is.
pretty-
I mean,
well,
it's
Japan
interesting even you
society.
say that too, because
Yeah.
somebody just brought up in the chat. Hold on, I want to scroll up and try to find this message. But J-Man27 Joestar said, "Well, we're comparing 20 years of experience of work to 4 years of work once again. But I do think it's interesting that many of you guys, even with 4 years of My Hero Academia, prefer a lot of the day-to-day stuff in My Hero to that of One Piece." And again,
Well, here's the thing.
we're all saying like
Like, I
Oda's
understand
backgrounds
what
are
he's
second to
saying.
none. And again, they're both good. Art's completely subjective. That's why I was like, I don't want anybody to get hurt feelings over any
I
of this.
can't take the art
But
in My Hero. I can't take the art in My Hero serious. That's one of the main things I don't like about it. Is the art.
Ty, you got
come on, Ty's definitely
No,
trolling
I'm
at this
serious
point.
about this. Let me explain. Raja was look when I explain, you'll know what I'm talking about.
This is the legendary.
I'm gonna give you. All right, this is the legendary Pirate King Ty.
Time out. I gotta ask a question. Is this the legendary Toy-Con I've been hearing so much about?
Yo.
Oh yes, bro. Spread the gospel on me, brother. I need to hear this in person.
All right, but look, I'm serious about this. Okay, so I was waiting for Raja to like touch on this part of the art. He really didn't. Kind of, you touched on it a little bit when you said like character designs, but from that kind of art, I don't like it. Like the main character, the guy that I see, he looks like a mid-tier Pokemon trainer. Like he doesn't even look like a fighter.
How does this always get back to Pokemon training every time you come in this? This is ridiculous.
I love Pokemon.
He loves Pokemon. I do too. It's in my logo, but still.
I'm surprised he hasn't made a Naruto reference yet.
It's hard for me to even like for the longest, I didn't even know like if it was a fighting manga because the way that the guy looks, he looks like he wants to have a friendly Pokemon match with Ash, and like he doesn't even care if he loses.
Oh my god!
And when I talk about the art, like I mean like the art where like okay, like when I started checking out Bleach, besides the story with the art, I'm like, oh, like it's no reason. Like, of course, this was one of the big three. Look at the art, you know what I mean? Like that type of art, like from the character design art. Now, keep this in mind with One Piece. Like, I think like when he draws characters like Ivankov and like Raizo, then his art sucks, but it's kind of suggestive because he's kind of being creative. But like those people, comparing it to like Bleach people or to like Naruto people, it sucks because they're wacky. But like when Oda wants to draw somebody good, like Katakuri or Luffy or Kaido, he's amazing. But with My Hero, that type of artwork they have.
What about Overhaul? What about Overhaul's design with the jacket and the mask? That you can take him seriously, can't you?
Yeah, Oda liked it so much that he made Karasu.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Exactly. Overhaul's design is very, very good.
I'm not even
Shigaraki's
Overhaul.
design all for one design.
Alex Cypher's like, I'm not even going to touch that.
Hold on. Of course, it's going to be one or two designs where it's like, okay, cool, he like great job. But I mean, like overall, because I was looking at the cat, like looking at the main cast of characters, like you're like, what? Even check this out, the movie. I know it's a My Hero movie coming out because I seen the trailer from it. So I'm not a fan of My Hero at all. But I heard about the movie. I see people hyping up on Twitter. I'm like, oh, it's about to be lit. It was about to be My Hero. I'm like, yo, you know, I'm not into My Hero, but this is a good chance for me to like get into it because of the movie or something like that. So I'm looking at the trailer. I didn't even like it. Wasn't nothing interesting there. Like, is Raja?
The trailer is misleading.
I mean,
The trailer is-
Ty, here's the problem, bro. Ty, the problem is the movie is a lot of fan service and character like interest. So like, if you're not into the characters, you're not gonna find the movie interesting at all either.
That's how the One Piece movies are a lot of the time.
Comparing
though,
that
too.
to the trailer that I
If you've
seen,
seen Young All Might's design, for the movie, that's pretty incredible. But I don't think.
No. Is
when
this
he's got the
guy?
cake?
Wait. I don't know who that is, but is this the guy that's in the thumbnail? Like the main bad guy?
All Might's one of the main.
Yeah, that's not a bad guy. That's a
Yo, Roger.
Joe said, wait,
Roger,
time
I'm
out.
gonna need a couple of
I think he
aspirins
kind of
and
reminded me
alcohol.
of
Oh, I'll pass the aspirin to you, fam. Don't worry about it.
something, and it wasn't original enough. You know what I mean?
Wait, I can't hear him.
His
You don't need.
that
No,
guy's
don't worry.
design-
Don't worry. You don't need to hear him. It's fine. It's fine. We're gonna move on.
Okay.
So we got real quick.
No, look.
I want to shout out. I want to shout out
okay.
someone real quick who just
Wasn't
joined us.
original enough. I'm
New to
saying
the call.
that it looks like
Wait.
something-
No, Ty. New to the call. New to the call. We got Vocal Pineapple in here. Welcome to the call. I wanted to give you your introduction because Yonko recommended you, said you should be in here. So real quick, since you are new to this call, we've been going for a while now, for about 2.5 hours. Is there anything over the course of these past 2.5 hours that we've already discussed that you want to touch on a little bit before we continue?
I heard King talking about Airy being kind of like a solution to all the problems in the that Mirio's having, and I disagree because I feel like they set up another way for that to be resolved. Like Eri, it's kind of like her time to be a problem solver is out of the picture. They stress like she's not going to be here solving all the problems, but there's a built-in solution. Like there's a cure to the I don't know how deep we're going into like spoilers or anything, but there's another like way for them to fix Mirio up that it doesn't feel cheap. Like, you know what I mean? Eri fixing him up feels cheap, but if there's like some other built-in like way for them to do that, which there is in the story, then I don't know. I don't really feel like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really see the problem with that at all.
Well, I mean, I see what you're saying, but my issue is that she just exists, and because she exists,
I did have a problem when she was brought into the series.
But the way Erie's set up, right? I think it's like one of those things where he takes the trope and he's like, okay, I'm going to introduce this broken little girl, and now you assume that I'm going to fuck everything up, but watch me actually.
No,
right?
No. I'm not saying that she's gonna go willy nilly, like, oh, you're sick, go back. Oh, you have cancer, that's gone. No, I'm not. No, what I'm saying is that the character, because of her existence and her existence alone, I think is detrimental to the story because there is a scapegoat that he can utilize that is quite easy.
I
to
feel
use
like
if he so
I
chooses
felt
to.
that
Again,
same way.
Aluka's the same way. All you need is kill Aluka, do this.
Yeah.
And there's no backlash.
I mean, honestly, that's the same. I think that's a big reason why we hated the Mancherry introduction during Dressrosa, too. Maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody. I shouldn't say we, but me personally, I was like, oh, cool. They're introducing this character that could just heal you with her tears. It's like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, now we know that nothing's really going to happen.
The world of my heroes powers that can go back. But hold on, wait. Really quickly, though. I'll let you guys go, but I just want to say one thing. Going back to the artwork, all right? Because after I was laughing, because Taekwondo. Shout out to Taekwondo. Here's the thing. There is one thing that I do think Oda does well, but at the same time can turn a lot of folks off, and that is when a character looks strong in One Piece, like muscled and ripped, they can be the weakest fucker on the planet. It's like, what the fuck is happening? Whereas in My Hero, All Might's like, holy shit, and he looks like holy shit. Endeavor the same way. Overhaul, he wasn't jacked, but you're like, yo, this guy has some aura. Like he looks like he can fuck you up, and the man fucks you up. So Shigaraki, it's like shit. These guys, like the way they look, it's portrayed better because from the standpoint, at least I can see why folks think it's better because they match what they're going to do. Like that's for sure. In One Piece, you have like some fat dude with no legs, and he's like godly. It's like holy shit.
I think that's the cool thing about One Piece, though, right? Is that you got My Hero kind of does that too, though, right? Is My Hero has Yoda. It's got Gran Torino hopping all over the walls, even though this old guy with the cane. And I think One Piece does the same thing, right? You got Whitebeard. The first time we meet him, he's sitting on this boat with like little oxygen masks on, and then when he comes out during Marineford, he rips off the mask, has a giant thing created earthquakes, and he's amazing.
Whitebeard stands like 16 feet tall.
That's
what
I'm saying.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then look at the first half of One Piece where everyone looks down upon Luffy, but Luffy kicks all their asses.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. But look at like.
But to be fair though, like Luffy looks a lot. Luffy looks really fit. That's like.
Yeah. Right.
I mean now.
But look at Blackbeard. Blackbeard has like a gut. Blackbeard has a gut. He has a gut. Teeth. He's all types. He's no leg mass at all. So what the fuck is happening?
He's been skipping leg day. He's been leg day for a couple.
Yeah. Look at Elizabello in Dressrosa has no legs. It's insane. His legs are twigs, and he has the king punch.
Exactly. He's got the king punch. He's been storing all
Look at Shinja. Look at Shinja. Look at Shinja, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
we can also talk about the neck game. Shout out to Dritz.
Okay, look. So I did not know who All Might was off the top of the head, but this is important because like one thing that I see with My Hero is that it seems like this happens with One Piece too because it's hard to like see One Piece out the blue and be into it, but it seems like the people who are into My Hero, y'all are already invested into it, so everything is just cool, y'all. Like it's expanded. It's
same thing with One Piece, though.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, same happens with One Piece.
Same thing with One Piece. So it's like you can say that for every series.
This All Might guy, I looked at his design and it's pretty like
Shout out One Piece Might. This All Might guy, right?
All Might dude.
All Might design is kind of trash. Like it's not better than
Yeah, but honestly, he's kind of supposed to look corny.
Is it better than Kaido? No, it's not better than
Orpheus. You brought up a good point. Wait. Time out. Ty, wait. Orpheus, continue on what you were going to say, because I think you brought up a good point.
Oh, me? Yeah. I think he's supposed to look corny.
Yes,
like,
please bring us to salvation.
he's supposed to be modeled after like old golden age comics. Like nowadays, obviously that's corny to us, but it definitely has like, you know, for some people that's still what they're into.
And what he looks like to me, he looks like when you play a game of Marvel vs. Capcom and they show that stick photo, like that photo.
Actually, no. Time out. Wait. Actually, Kai, you bring up a good point, because if you're trying to trash on, I'm not trying to stand for My Hero or anything like that, but if you're trying to trash on All Might for looking like an American comic book hero, because that's what Capcom Marvel has, then that's
he's inspired by it directly.
He's inspired by
that's the point.
American comic book character.
It's in the most corniest way that I ever seen, so I don't think they shouldn't get
the most corniest way I've ever seen.
Hold on, all right, wait.
Ever.
All right. Because you've been getting cut off a lot. Explain it.
Other comic book characters and that stuff too, and it came out better than it's like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like I felt bad. I'm like, I don't know who. I look at the art. I'm like, and this is what I mean. Like it's not art. Like a lot of people in Naruto looks better than that.
Yeah,
that's all. I mean,
but in Naruto, they're supposed to be serious ninjas. Like it's different.
That's the quote of the stream right there. I kind of feel like, quote, Ty, 2018. The people in Naruto look better than that.
No.
I told you he has to make an art to reflect.
Oh my god.
We're like not the art on a week to week basis, just like the character design. Like the way that the art is, like I don't like it. Like I'll say this: it's better than Hunter x Hunter, but I don't the same thing with Hunter x Hunter. I don't think it's that superior art compared to like what I see from Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece has it too. Just not when it's the wacky character.
For art from Togashi, I'm sorry. All I'm saying is, if you're looking for art,
show is good.
If you're looking for art, Togashi, you got 99 problems plus one. I mean, you got a lot of problems.
No. That's not. But to me, that's one of the most like it's part of your presentation. You know what I mean? So it's like South Park is
out of here with that presentation shit.
South Park is mad funny, but the art is trash.
All right. Okay. Wait. Hold on. Let me just. I think it's fair to say this. All right, My Hero, I think, appeals in a much better sense in artwork, almost kind of like we're Bleach, because Bleach does characters I think fairly well. It's more modern, and it's not an acquired taste. You can hop into My Hero, but you know what? This looks solid. One Piece is an acquired taste, almost.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, like it really is.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because like every casual person I've talked to who I try to get into One Piece, they're like, "Oh, I saw that series, but it just looks too goofy to me. I don't really like it."
Right.
My fans of other like my girlfriend is a perfect example of that. Like when she first wanted to get into One Piece, she had liked the characters, but was like, "Yeah, you know what? The story sounds interesting. I like pirates and stuff, but the art is just really throwing me off." Whereas immediately she got into My Hero Academia. Now it took time. Now she loves One Piece. Now she's like reading the story, but I still don't think the art is what gets her to read it. I do think it's an acquired taste, and if you've been there from the beginning, you're going to appreciate it and like it more. And again, that's not to say it's bad, right? Obviously, we've been talking about it's all subjective, but I do think to a casual demographic, I would ultimately say that One Piece's art is actually the thing that kept it from going like to the levels that it is in Japan, because here the art is very.
There's a lot of factors.
Well, I know, but I'd say if you look at One Piece and you look at My Hero Academia and you look at standard anime and you look at the anime that are really popular in North America, I think My Hero Academia fits that mold better than One Piece does. Whereas One Piece really stands out in Japan because you have all these moe series, you have all these anime.
You look at the way people perceive some of the designs.
Wait, hold on. Before we continue, what we have to remember is these manga series get really, really popular because of their anime counterparts, right? Or they can fall apart because of the anime counterparts.
Totally.
So what you have to remember, the reason why One Piece never got big in North America was because Kids WB had the original dub for One Piece and completely slaughtered One Piece with his dialogue. And then on top of that, with the fact that the art wasn't Zolo.
You enjoy
I'm joining the pirates. Funimation had the licensing for One Piece from the very beginning. It could probably be a different story. I don't think it'll be bigger than Naruto because what American wants is completely different than what Japan wants. Right. And we see that all the time with character polls and what Americans like to see and what Japan wants to see, right? But that's the biggest factor for One Piece not becoming as big as it should have been in America, because that anime, when it first came out in One Piece, especially when it was around the time where Yu-Gi-Oh was in his prime and Dragon Ball Z was in his prime, people were like, I'm not watching this rubber dude that's talking about dumb shit.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because the dialogue affected it really,
Like
really
toy guns and
But
shit.
the way-
you have characters like
and then Sanji's walking around with a lollipop in his mouth. I mean,
Oh, stop it!
The way
it.
some
Yeah,
people
very
perceive the
basic.
design in My Hero,
No.
right? If you look at how some people like talk about it, I don't think many people here are in tune with that community as like someone like me and Zypher are maybe. But like if you look at how people treat them and how like people look at characters like Kirishima and Bakugo, they just love a lot of them for like small things, and the main thing that drags them in is the costume and just like the little like interactions that they have, and then like you see these people just go crazy over like the tiniest things that these characters do, and it's the design mainly that pulls them in. Like
right, and it's
because
also
everyone
a
loves
different
Sanji,
timeline too.
No,
'cause
like,
you also
yeah,
got to take into you
So-
also got to take into concept that the timelines as well. Like My Hero is in a time where social media is a thing, whereas One Piece, when One Piece came to America, all we had was Toonami. You know, like
Twitter didn't
we didn't
even-
have
and the
anything
way they
else, like-
meme some of the stuff
Twitter-
in My Hero, it blows up
Absolutely,
a lot. Like
absolutely. Like
Right,
the,
yeah,
the
banging
little
his
gif
head
of
on the
Deku
desk.
banging his head on the computer.
Yeah,
Exactly.
when Deku was running into his mother's house, and you know how like there was one, you know, when Deku runs into his mother's house, like his mom's room, and he's like,
and he opens the door and she says, "Help me." Yeah.
Someone remade that with Bakugo.
Yeah,
Or a coach
yeah.
posted that on Twitter.
I think
Oh my
I think
God,
the
this is
most
amazing,
recent one
thank
was
you.
from the anime when Ochako was like sitting on the toilet when she's like,
Oh yeah, or like when they're like dancing and stuff. Like it's
Yeah.
very like memeable, and like if those like memes spread around, and like people see it, they're like, oh, let me check this out.
I feel like it's even the case like because like I think it's safe to say My Hero is just bigger in the West in general. So on social media, when we follow these people in the West, it's a lot more seen. Whereas One Piece is not like that, especially the anime. Well, I feel like most One Piece fans that are vocal are not even following the anime as much as they do the manga now.
Pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
everyone's just going
Roger,
at me
about
about
Yeah, but
fucking.
apparently Emi's gone right now, bro. I'm
about
behind.
the art, like the
Oh yeah, dude! I was watching with Uzumaki Khan. Oh man, like his reactions to some of the stuff that he just watched Sanji versus Luffy. This
Oh, I
man,
didn't see it. I didn't
Oh,
see
yeah,
it. I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
see it.
Well, here's the thing. I want to answer one because somebody made a good point in the comment section where he said 4Kids had Yu-Gi-Oh! And it blew up. But here's the thing: 4Kids is catered to children. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a card game. Even though the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Was not catered to children, it's a lot easier to cater a card game to children when you dub it than it
especially
is for One Piece. And then on top of that, what you also have to remember is Yu-Gi-Oh! Is actually a product. You can actually buy Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards and then interact directly with Yu-Gi-Oh! itself. Whereas
standard.
One Piece, you cannot do that.
Right.
So that's why Yu-Gi-Oh! Blew up, despite the fact that it had a very crappy dub.
And it is weird too because you look at Yu-Gi-Oh, like the original Yu-Gi-Oh that was published in Shonen Jump. There was no Shadow Realm. That didn't exist. You
No,
died.
they just died.
Yeah,
They literally
exactly. It's like there was no
feel
Shadow
like,
Realm.
I feel like
Done.
they also
It's
continue to
crazy
make
that,
these
that,
mistakes.
that you brought up Yu-Gi-Oh. But because I was just thinking, like, okay, this main character, the guy with the green, he looks like,
Oh my
like
god.
Kaiba.
Well, I gotta mute Ty. I can't. I can't deal with this. I
But the
can't.
thing
I
that
can't, Ty.
sells,
You gotta be
okay,
in. You're in here. You gotta be in.
like the way the cards, like the way the monsters are designed, like the Dark Magician. That shit, like when you're a kid, that shit just looks cool to you.
This is
right?
what I'm talking
And you just
about.
wanna, and then you
But,
just wanna like
uh,
grab one and buy the card.
I mean, like, when you look at the two main characters of
Zypher, what were you saying?
I wanted to go back quickly to what Jotun was saying about the 4Kids thing. They continue to make these mistakes. I feel like, I think you mentioned this in a video one time, Roger, where when they even brought it back again, they started from the Foxy arc. Like I feel like it's a terrible point to start in the West. When if they started even like Water 7, I feel like a lot more people they could have pulled a lot more people.
But they
in.
did go through.
Wasn't
Water
that Funimation? Funimation started with the Foxy arc, but what
Yeah,
I'm talking about
I'm just
is
saying they just continue to make these mistakes, adapting it to the West that they like it didn't.
oh yeah,
translate
I can see what you're saying. Yeah, I understand.
At the end of the day, One Piece, like I feel like until we get another Marineford, it won't click with the Western audience more than it already has. It will grow incrementally, but until we have another big fucking showdown like Marineford or Final War type thing, I don't think it's gonna click in terms of finding that Western audience. That's just.
I do feel like Wano. I feel like Wano can get there. Because he's been hyping up Wano for such a long time and saying how it's gonna have all these repercussions.
Because here's the thing that's interesting, right? If you look at the West, right?
My
When we look
problem
at
with
the
Wano
West
right now. Oh, sorry. But
My
my
bad,
problem-
finish it. Go ahead, finish. Go ahead.
All right, just it's a small thing, but my problem with Wano right now is that it's so focused on the Japanese culture, folklore, and mythos that I feel like that will detract from people in the West, especially, to be able to relate to that storyline. Because whenever Oda has gone into these big epic stories, it's always been or like Alabaster based on Arabia. It's a surface level, whereas Japan, he's really commentating, and it's for his Japanese audience. More than
Yeah, I heard
anything.
it's a party over there with Wano right now in Japan. Like they're absolutely loving every single chapter, like even the tiniest little bits, the sumo wrestling, every little tiny bit. Like Japan's going head over heels for it.
And to me, it's
really
just
nice for
really,
them.
really boring. I can't relate to a lot of these.
You can't
things.
relate
A
to
lot
it.
of-
Right.
It's really hard to enjoy this.
Well,
and
Wano's
people
boring
on
too.
Twitter,
And see, that,
like,
that goes
people
back to
on-
the subjectivity thing, right? Because like to me, I've been thoroughly enjoying the beginning of Wano Country
Yeah, me
because
too.
I haven't really
Yeah,
had an
me
expectation, and I was like with the ending of Whole Cake Island. Not to get back to this because I really don't want to like spend too much time on this, but with the ending of Whole Cake Island, I was kind of mixed at the beginning of Whole Cake with the stuff with the Seducing Woods. Then we got to that point with the Whole Cake Chateau where things were just amazing week after week after week, and it felt like he built up the story to that point that then when we got to the denouement, when we got to what we assumed was the denouement with like, you know, the Luffy and Katakuri stuff and going back to the Seducing Woods, it felt like it took a little too long for me. And there are moments, I will say, now that we're talking about the anime anyway, I feel like there are moments that the anime is actually doing a much better job with Whole Cake Island than even the manga did. I think they're fleshing out certain things and they're making it a lot more exciting. But at the same time, when you're reading it week to week, it's really hard to pull yourself away from how you just feel about the chapter if your job is to talk about the chapter, right? It's hard to look at the overall big picture of things if week to week you're just going through and trying to analyze the chapter. And I think
No, just
Not just
just
that,
make
no.
the checklist. Just make the checklist, man. That's all I do.
But
yeah,
I feel like
yeah,
I feel like this issue that everybody always complains about, like the pacing, it's being
No, but
feels
it's
dragged
the-
out. But I think it's so much more different from where it was pre-time skip, whereas like there's so many more moving characters when you compare like Water 7 and Enies Lobby. It's like
No.
the Straw Hats and you have the CP9. But in Whole Cake you have Capone and his crew, you have the Vince Smokes, you have the Fishmen, you have Big
Fleet
Mom, you have the
Commanders.
Straw Hats. There's so
No,
many more
okay.
moving characters that you cannot like just skip over these things. Oda has to
Is
go.
the
of
issue,
course, and I'm not arguing
and,
that.
and then actually, you know, like now I think about it too. I guess to bring it back to the My Hero then, because I think from a pacing standpoint, I'm not too sure. I forgot who said before. Who someone said that it was too. I think it was Matt who said it's really fast pacing compared to like One Piece. So it's like the polar opposite. Where if the slow pacing One Piece is bad, then the fast pacing My Hero Academia is also bad.
The way they
in retrospect, but at the same time, then because I can understand that from a standpoint, but I think the pacing, if it is fast, then it's only portrayed in the sense of it's fast because there are certain characters that should be highlighted but don't get highlighted. So other teachers, for example, like Midnight or Yamada, the guy with the speakers, or you know, some class A, like you know, like again, Invisible Girl or Shoji. It's like okay,
But the way they do that in My Hero is like they make it concise. So like you have like a 10 chapter arc, and then he moves on to the next bit, and he gets it done as quick as possible. Which is why
Whereas-
some people
But
are
Orpheus,
attracted to
Orpheus.
My Hero a little bit
Whereas-
more. Like
Orpheus,
with a
if we
One
had
Piece
a-
arc, you have to wait a lot of the time. Although the chapters might be enjoyable in a One Piece arc, right? It is going to take a long time for it to really get into the action. Whilst in a My Hero arc, like example, the stuff with Endeavor that just happened, like he took like 3 chapters to like explain what was going on with the Nomu, and then you just get straight into the action.
No.
You have like
What you mean, like,
But Orpheus, look at it this way, right? Let's say way into the future of My Hero, we have all of Class Way and 1A involved. We have the League of Villains, possibly some people from
then you have to
third
do
years.
it.
Don't you think it would be a lot longer, and the people will start complaining it's dragged out because now he has to move
I
all
think
these
that's
characters
something
around.
that's holding him back from writing like an amazing like god tier arc is the fact that like if the pro hero arc went on for like 10 20 more chapters, then I think I could put it up as like an amazing shonen arc and as like one of the best, right? If he kept writing as like a consistent quality. But the fact that he writes these short arcs and then he dips, sometimes it feels like we could have gotten a bit more, but then he has to move on to the next thing, and he hasn't really taken a humongous risk with his storytelling like Oda did with the Water 7 arc, like they did in Hitman Reborn with the Future arc, like Togashi did with the Chimera arc. So if he did longer arcs, that could benefit his storytelling more. But he said, even when he tried the Overhaul arc, a lot of people saying like, "Oh, I don't know about this." They were complaining about the pacing.
Right.
If you were keeping up with it week to week,
Which I think is funny because,
And you
right,
said
that's like,
that-
as a One Piece fan, we're used to the super long story arc. So for me, when I was reading Overhaul, and granted I did it as like a read-through live stream, I did 2 long, like 10-chapter read-throughs. To me, I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, I love this. There's so much information packed in here. It's great. But I think that's just a difference in the fandoms, right? And I think, again, it's subjective, but it's also what we're used to. One Piece people are used to really, really long story arcs because it's what we were spoon-fed from the beginning. Aside from, the really early stuff in East Blue. Whereas the stuff that's going on right now in My Hero, or it was going on a little while ago with the stuff with Overhaul, I think people were so used to those 6, 7, 8 chapter arcs that when you got something that was longer, people were like, all right, enough with this. Let's move on.
But when it comes to like One Piece and specifically, I understand people have issues with pacing, but to me, what's more egregious than the pacing is the structure of individual chapters, where Oda will cut away from certain events, come back to certain events, and then he will use the same cliffhangers multiple times. And then when you're watching it in the anime, it doesn't happen as much because they abbreviate that and they bring it all together. Whereas in the manga, that is something where when you're reading week to week, it is insufferably bad.
Which is also very funny because, right, you look at One Piece, just what we were talking about with Whole Cake, and that's a big way I think they're actually improving on that arc because every episode doesn't end with the cliffhanger of Big Mom, right? The episodes have been changing. The couple episodes ago ended with Pedro, and they were able to see what the reaction was from fans and sort of like shift the story to make it more enjoyable. And so if you're going to binge it, I would honestly recommend watching Whole Cake Island because it's making me like that arc more. Like watching the anime is actually making me like that arc more. And I'm not saying that's a bad arc. People, again, it's like I've said my piece on this. I enjoy a lot of Whole Cake Island, but I do think that the anime is doing a pretty good job of it. And that brings me into the other thing I wanted to talk about like 20 minutes ago, but we just didn't have time to do it, which was that you look at One Piece's anime and you look at My Hero Academia's anime, and this is one thing that I do think stands out in terms of why so many people are latching onto My Hero, and it is kind of unfair to compare it to One Piece, in that One Piece is an ongoing weekly series, whereas My Hero Academia is done in seasons. And this debate has happened within the One Piece community for a long time now, where like, would One Piece benefit from waiting and doing each story arc as a season and then moving on? Because a lot of the time, people will complain about the animation, and it has admittedly been getting better recently. I think a lot of the Whole Cake Island stuff was beautiful. But when you look at My Hero Academia and you look at the detailing that goes into each and every episode, it's like not even a contest, really.
Yeah, but
you can't compare.
Anime. Go ahead.
Let me just say,
when the base designs, like the base artwork that I was talking about before, but it just doesn't have that type of it doesn't have the One Piece art is better though. Like One Piece art is better, Naruto art is better. Yu Yu Hakusho has
that's to you. That's subjective.
Yeah, it's all subjective, exactly.
Bro,
that's not objective. Like art is one of those things you can never objectively.
No, like
we're talking about scenes. We're talking about
choreography.
The way they adapt the All Might versus All for One fight, right? The way they brought that from anime to manga, that was 3 chapters. They put it into 1 episode, and the way they had the clash. Now, most people, like some people said, they felt it was a little bit dragged out, but the way they did it was they managed to fit it all in 1 episode. With One Piece, it's like some of the fights, like as much as I love them, like it takes like. So, for example, the All Might vs. All for One, if I want to watch that again, I just go to the episode. With Luffy versus Lucci, I have to watch like 6 or 7 different episodes, right? Because it's scattered across
but that doesn't mean that's better
parts, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's better because Bleach did that. Bleach like cramped like two chapters into one, or sometimes 3 into one.
Thing, though, you can read a Bleach chapter in like 45 seconds.
Yeah, Bleach chapters go by extremely fast because of the way the pacing.
You can argue that's one of the major reasons why Bleach fell off so hard because. Yeah.
But Bleach does it in a good way. At least when his fights happen.
Nah, definitely not. Like. Part 2. Well, I don't even want to get into this. This is My Hero and One Piece.
Right.
Like let's not talk about Bleach.
When I finished the anime from Bleach and I went into the manga, it was like it went perfect. So like I don't find anything wrong with the manga chapters.
Good for you, bro.
So real quick, hold on. That's like a good place.
All I gotta say is, bro,
real quick, I want to read out some more
donations.
We got a bunch of different donations. I've been missing them. I'm so sorry, people. Ryuma says, "King, you traitor! You promised to stream today. I guess, are you going to stream after this?"
No.
All right. Well, I guess you're not getting to stream. I'm sorry about that. Lieutenant Smash says, read My Hero Vigilantes if you haven't already. It answers the no quirk thing. Red House, not Roadhouse, says Might Guy versus All Might. Who wins?
Might Guy, because of
Might
the
Guy.
8. And Might Guy, the 8 gates was like slashing through like.
Yes, that's not even who. Why?
It's a
That's
silly
not even.
question.
Hey, it was a
Why?
question. I
There
wanted to
was-
read it out. And then we
No, I'm
also
not
got
saying you reading it,
Unclean
like, why would you
Actions
ask
for
that?
Cheap
That's not fair,
Currency,
bro. Come on,
donating, saying, I missed the beginning of the stream, so I make up for it by giving you money. So thank you for all that stuff.
Yo, give me money. What the
No,
fuck?
exactly. Yeah, I have to give that donation to Sunpatch earlier. It was directed to her.
Oh goddamn, bro! Swimming in the clout. I like it.
What the fuck?
No, but I will say this though, right? I think one of the major issues, this goes for the anime as well, but I think one of the major issues like One Piece has in terms of getting like audience retention, because that's the most important thing when you're doing anything really when it comes to like media. You need the retention, right? Even as YouTubers, we need retention. And when it comes to One Piece, like the retention is really hard unless you're really, really like into One Piece. That's why like people try to get into One Piece and they read it weekly and they're like, I just can't do this, because the chapters of week to week don't feel as satisfying as other chapters do.
Yeah,
right?
true, but
There's so much that goes on in One Piece that it leads on to more things and to more things and to more things. Whereas other series just do that a lot better, where you can feel satisfied reading a chapter a week. Whereas One Piece, you feel a lot better.
I think
binging it.
after Dressrosa, they did a way better job with that though.
We're talking about the manga.
Well, I mean, because after Dressrosa was whole cake, right? I would say, well, I don't know
like
about
the anime for Dressrosa was so bad. Like I don't look back. I don't look at the anime anymore. Like I won't. Like it's gonna take a while. Like that's how bad the Dressrosa was in the pacing you're talking about. Where it's like I can't. We're getting nowhere. And these episodes is taking like 24 minutes or whatever. And we're getting nowhere.
The way they do the pacing in the My Hero manga is like they add Horikoshi does cliffhangers extremely well. Like in the Overhaul arc, especially towards the end, like the fight with Mirio, you see the way that ended, and then like the bullet is about to be fired at him, and like for the whole week, like you want to see what happens in the next chapter. And then, you know, the follow-up to that is like, you know, Deku's power-ups and stuff like that. And so Horikoshi manages to keep you invested with those types of cliffhangers. Whilst in One Piece, sometimes it does do that, but other times he just kind of leaves it there, and then, you know, you just have to wait for the next bit.
It's a slugfest, basically.
Yeah.
Until you get another Gear 4 transformation. And
One
that's
thing about
about
One Piece, like while it is like sometimes the pacing could be hard because it feels like you're not getting anywhere. Like it's like how some people felt with the Big Mom stuff. I didn't feel that way, but I know y'all felt that way about the Big Mom stuff. I felt that way about certain stuff in Just Rosa. But like while it's bad, like I feel like the payoff, like it has the best payoff ever. Like it's the most, like when it happens. All right, like Sabo versus Fuji. We kind of didn't really get to see that like that, and then it was other fights like York versus Pika. Yeah. But like when it happens though, like just how hype it is. You know what I mean? Like the hype around it is on a different level. It's
I also don't think though. I can't believe I'm saying this. I don't think Ty's wrong at all, because I think if you look at One Piece and you look at My Hero Academia, I feel like the hype in My Hero comes from the, you know, in the moment action, right? Like one massive punch or one like big story revelation. Whereas with One Piece, it leads up for chapters to a certain point that when you finally get to it, it's almost cathartic. You're like, oh my God, finally, I can relax. We know this information. Now on to the next mystery.
And the way Oda does his reveals, right? Like with Kaido was like, when did they mention Kaido? Was that Water 7?
795, buddy. 79. I remember the chapter. I remember seeing Kaido and freaking out.
Yeah. The way Oda led up to that reveal was for like years and
it was
years.
amazing.
And so the hype behind that, when that comes out, is like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Whilst with the stuff in My Hero, like he kind of addresses it quickly. Like, for example, during the end of the license exam arc, I won't spoil it, but, you know, like what happens with the villains and stuff like that. And then you see the payoff of it in the Overhaul arc, like almost like 30 chapters later, within like the span of like half a year, like Horikoshi addresses what he set up in the license.
Well, here's the thing, like, One Piece is interesting because Oda has this writing style where he's able, I think he's the best in the game when it comes to building tension. Like there's I don't think there's anybody better than Oda when it comes to building tension, drawing it out, and then getting hype for it. And it gets to the point where like he builds the tension so well from arc to arc, to the point where like even though the payoff it could be great, it could be good, it's nowhere near as great as the tension building was. So it gives you like this disillusionment of like, damn, it was a good payoff, but I felt like it could have been better simply because of him building to that payoff was so great. and it just kind of leaves like this inconsistent feeling. I feel.
But it's never
One
dry.
Piece has those but One Piece has the length advantage too because he can set it up like, and he has the continuity advantage as well. So he can set it up in like chapter 300, and then he can address, and then that will build hype around it. Because like,
yeah, but I'm not talking about lengthwise. I'm just talking about like you know how people be like, because I feel like payoff.
People felt that way
One Piece,
about the category
building is so strong.
People felt that way about the category fight. Again, not me, but they felt like the tension was so there, the hype was so there. They was probably so ready for Luffy to lose or so ready for it to be a tie. Then it went a different way. So then they kind of felt disappointed. But I feel like One Piece is never dry though. So even if something happens to where like the tension was more hype than what actually really happened, it's already another event where it's like, oh snap! Like you look at the revelry, look at like it's always something where it's like people still want to know, like as dope as Wano is, people still want to know what else happened to the revelry. Like it's always something.
Oh yeah, I mean we're going to be wanting to know what's going to happen to the revelry all through Wano Country. Yeah, unless it gets answered in some like
because that was such a bullshit cutaway.
The stuff with Imu-sama. See, but that I think is a good example of like a recent excellent cliffhanger. I was gonna say, I think that was one of the best cliffhangers in years. Was seeing Imu-sama and being like, oh my god, is this dude the final villain? Like, what's going on here?
Of course, but the way we had to cut into Wano was such bullshit.
See, I actually liked. I have to disagree with that. I really like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and what I wanted to talk about pacing real fast is that like when I said that it got better after Zoe was that like we got to Wano, it was like one chapter, right? Like they was already in the sea or something like that. Then they got to Wano. It was a boring chapter, but I mean they at least accomplished, like we got the newspaper reveal about Sabo, and then they went right to Wano. Like it wasn't like a whole. It takes 6 chapters to get to Wano, like nothing like that. So I think that pacing is getting better.
Yeah,
and Oda has the unpredictability. Oda has the unpredictability factor, right? Whilst Horikoshi does have that sometimes. Roger, what One Piece My Hero chapter did you read up to last?
Last My Hero chapter I read was the very beginning of the next arc after Endeavor. So that's where I left off on the last
finished all the Pro Hero stuff.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah. So like for example, the recent plot twist, I can't spoil it too much, but with like the
number 3?
like the top 2 heroes.
Right,
yeah. So just like the stuff with Hulk and stuff like that unpredictability factor is what I think Horikoshi's learning slowly, but Oda has the advantage because like no one predicted Imu-sama was gonna come in.
No, that was
like that
out of nowhere. But it makes but that's the good thing is it made a lot of sense, right? We were always wondering like who's at the top of the Celestial Dragons, who's the guy above everybody else who's in charge. And so finally getting that was exciting, but we don't know what to do with that really.
Another thing about Imu that's cool too is that if you go back, like he doesn't break the structure, you know what I mean? Like everything makes sense, but it's like he could have been like Oda could have been had him written in, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't change anything. Like of course we was told like it was the world government in charge of the Celestial Dragons, but like even when we first get to that island, it looks one way on the surface, but then they have the slaves right under there, slaving away. So it's always that mystery of people who's in control. Like we seen it when they put Akainu in his place, like when he was upset about what was that? He was upset.
When that happened, when Imu was revealed, I went back and I watched the Robin Flashback with Professor Clover.
Oh yeah,
because that was really important and how that played into the Gorosei and how they were talking about the Ohara learned too much.
Yes, yeah, the Ohara.
So when you go back and you read and you see how these are all tied up and these characters, especially how you think they're the top dogs, but at the end of the day, their knowledge comes from somewhere. Right, as the Goro say. So with Imu-sama, I feel like it was a very monumental moment, but still we don't know nothing, and it's going to be years upon years.
And it is going to be a while before we get that answer. Yeah. I want to quickly shout out this guy. Martin Meeks donated and said, Big Mom is one of my favorites. I understand she was a letdown for people. What are your opinions on her, King and Roger? I think I've already talked about it a little bit, but King, what are your opinions on Big Mom?
Big Mom as a character, or like
in general? He said he was a little disappointed by Big Mom. So, were you at all disappointed after Whole Cake Island?
My thing about it is that I think Big Mom was okay. I enjoyed her. Like, I think she was fun. Like, I thought she was doing some crazy stuff. But I really was kind of thrown off when, not necessarily when the Strats thwarted her, but when Brooke in particular speed blitzed. That was the one thing I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, that kind of threw me off. And then when it came to her reach and her influence, like, it's clearly there. But at the same time, there are elements of her character that I found to be a little also ridiculous. Like, oh well, she sees the photo, and then you have the whole mother Carol thing going on. She's crying. That's a big weakness of hers. But at the same time, she's able to easily block Luffy's attacks, and we had a clear indicator of what a Yonko could do. So like, she was impressive, I think, combat wise, ability wise. But one thing that was annoying was that even though we just seen Pedro die, the fact that they continue the chase, they thought that they'd killed the Straw after the tidal wave, which was impressive, but then actually no, they're still alive. So Big Mom, I have mixed feelings on her, but overall I would say I like her more than I dislike Big Mom's character. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, Big Mom is great. One last thing I want to talk about before we wrap this bad boy up. This is relatively important. I want to talk about this because I think it's sort of the big question that started off this stream. Guys, again, I talked about how maybe the art discussion was going to be the thing that hurts a lot of people's feelings, but this will actually probably be the thing that makes people very salty. I just really, in general, your general opinions, what are your thoughts on which series you prefer more currently? One Piece or My Hero Academia? Just talk a little bit, save your reactions until the ending. We'll do a giant group discussion, but one by one, let's maybe go left in terms of how it looks in the Hangout. So I guess starting with King and then moving down the line. What are your thoughts overall on One Piece and My Hero right now, and which one do you prefer?
Well, again, to be fair, I'm behind like 2 or 3 chapters in My Hero. I'm pretty sure I'm only behind 2. Like the last chapter I read, Deku had just come out of the dream, so I'll leave it at that. So for me personally, all right, I would say Wano Country right now I think has been okay. So if I would compare, like, let's say the latest 2 months between the two, I would lean towards My Hero. But if you want to go a little further back, say the Reverie stuff, without question, One Piece. Like, if I would say like this year, One Piece, without question. Honestly, I think One Piece has been superior by a landslide. In all honesty, like I know folks love the Endeavor stuff, and I like it too. Don't get me wrong, but I think the Reverie stuff has been way too pivotal. I think the end of Whole Cake Island, I think, was fantastic. The Katakuri stuff was so good. I just like the Katakuri stuff ultimately. So I would say this year, like 2018, so far between My Hero and One Piece, I'm leaning towards One Piece. Definitely.
All right, you heard it straight from King. All right, Orpheus, you're next up.
Oh, okay. So personally, although I'd acknowledge that One Piece is better written, obviously, like the fight, I still think I prefer the My Hero fights. But when it comes to the day of the chapters drop, I usually read the My Hero chapter first. I just relate to the characters most. So right now, I'm gonna go with My Hero.
Right on, Joten.
I'm gonna spread Black Clover greatness and gospel Black Clover.
Hey, go.
Fair enough.
Black Clover is heat.
No, honestly, I'm not up to the point for My Hero where I can honestly give you a true, honest opinion about what I prefer.
Because you're not caught up.
I'm not fully. Yeah, I'm basically I'm at where the anime is at, and that's really not fair to be like, well, you know what I'm saying. So all I'm saying is, if you think Black Clover's trash, give it another try. It's actually pretty decent. It's enjoyable.
Spreading that positivity with his vote. Look at that. All right,
Yo,
BMC.
no.
BMC, what's your call? Is he in here? Oh, he's muted?
His mic is muted.
Oh, his mic's muted. Okay, we'll move on. We'll get back to him then.
I got it.
Oh, you got it. All right,
Sorry.
you're good.
Yeah. It's not even, to me, it's not even like close. And that's like personally, right? you already know. It's My Hero. All right. One Piece, like I actually had to just like stop reacting to chapters.
Dropped it.
I was so bored. Like I was just like, I don't care about this stuff at the moment. Like I just don't. You know, and that's personally. I'm not saying y'all can't care. Go ahead, care, read, do all that stuff. But My Hero is just way more interesting to me. Yeah, and that's it. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
All right, Pineapple.
I think I'm enjoying My Hero more. As of recently, especially, I am having a really fun time in Wano with Luffy and Zoro getting into trouble and whatnot. I do really like that kind of stuff. But My Hero, ever since like around the beginning of the Overhaul arc, I've just been having a blast reading it. It's just been like so good for me. So I'm gonna go with My Hero.
All right, Yonko.
All right. So as King said, the Reverie stuff, the end of Whole Cake Island. Yeah, end of Whole Cake Island was kind of rough patch here and there, but I did enjoy One Piece, especially the Reverie. That was monumental as a fan of One Piece. But when it comes down to the week to week, how I feel about when it comes to, okay, especially the Wano stuff right now, I am completely, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm not enjoying Wano. And mainly because Oda has become super formulaic with how he approaches his arcs and how he structures certain events. So having experienced that multiple times in a row, I'm just not as invested, or I want to get hooked in more later on. Whereas right now, I'm actually enjoying My Hero because each character feels much more fleshed out, and like the stuff with Endeavor was phenomenal with me. I was on the edge of my seat. The stuff with Deku and versus Overhaul was insanity, especially when it comes down to the final confrontation. And I know some people might feel like, okay, it was just one final confrontation, but the build up to that, especially the small fights as well. And then even then, when we had the downtime, I really enjoyed the culture festival because that was really getting to know the characters. And I know King doesn't like the downtime slice of life stuff, but I felt like I really could relate to a lot of the characters and enjoy their personalities a lot more, especially like when you had those little fun moments with Aoyama and that little speculation bubble, So to me, week to week, I'm really enjoying My Hero Academia.
Right on. Foxamar, if your mic is working, I know you've been trying to get it working.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you finally. Excellent. You're coming in for the final vote. The last thing we're talking about, but it's good. You at least made it in. Wonderful. You don't sound like a robot anymore. What are your thoughts, overall general thoughts, One Piece or My Hero right now?
For me, the first thing that I want to read like Friday morning is One Piece. I enjoy it more, and I think Wano is starting to get good. It's gonna be a long arc, so it has to get built up. So I think I'm enjoying One Piece now more than My Hero Academy.
Right on.
I like My Hero Academy though, but I enjoy One Piece more now.
And then Ty, I already know, is going to say One Piece because he didn't even know who All Might was. And then so I'm skipping him. But coming to me, I actually have been really enjoying the stuff in Wano Country. I think the stuff in Wano Country has been a lot of fun with the setup. I went in knowing it was going to be a really long arc. But having said that, even though I'm not completely caught up to My Hero, I'm about like 5 or 6 chapters behind. Lord Almighty, that stuff with Endeavor was incredible. Incredible. That is one of the best short arcs I've read in any manga series, and I do think that the highs of My Hero Academia are really high, and I think the All for One arc, getting that stuff with Endeavor, even some of the stuff that happened earlier on in the story was incredible, but I gotta go with One Piece. I have to. I look forward to reading One Piece each and every week. I really do love it, and I'm excited to see where Oda's gonna go with the story. I think the stuff with Reverie was just incredible. Every single chapter of Reverie completely blew my mind. And again, that's bias. That's somebody who's been reading One Piece for half of his life and somebody who just got into My Hero a couple years ago. But Lord Almighty, I mean, just seeing revelation after revelation and how the world building is finally paying off, even though we did get that cliffhanger, and I understand how people are really upset that we didn't get more information on Emu. At the same time, I understand there's other stuff to talk about. I got to give it to One Piece. Now, last thing, since we already had our big discussion and we all talked about which one we prefer, any last overall general thoughts before we wrap this video up? And I will say this, if you've been here this whole time and we have not dipped below 1,000 viewers once this entire stream, which I think is amazing. We got to like 1,500. We were still going back and forth. People were debating. This, I really did feel was a really fun stream. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, it was a toxic discussion on Twitter. People wanted to throw it away. But I do think that if people sit down and listen to it, I feel like we did give both of these series a really fair shot. I think we brought up the pros and cons of each series really well. We brought on different people who had different, ideas of what they think is good and what they think is bad. So it's fine. So I feel like the mix of content creators was pretty good. Some people are saying it was toxic, whatever. We were Pixar boys, though. There was a lot of swearing in this stream. I'll say that much. There was a lot of it, but that's okay. So last thing I want to say before we get in our final general overall thoughts are, please, if you have been here with us this entire time, drop a like on the stream. We greatly appreciate it. If you want more discussion streams, even if it's not stuff like this, if it's, discussion topics that are less toxic, we need your support. So thank you to everybody that's been in here listening, and please like the stream. Means a lot to us. All your ratings mean a lot to us. I know a lot of people disliked even before the stream even started. We had like half of those dislikes came from before the stream even started. But
from One Piece fans.
I know. I do think it was a lot of One Piece fans actually who disliked it, thinking that this is going a weird direction. But I really did think that this was a lot of fun. Somebody just dropped a super chat. What is this? It says, Gigantomachia has been hyped up for over 120 chapters. And what was the other thing?
Yeah, that payoff's going to be insane.
True? Oh, that's going to be dope.
Somebody else dropped in the chat. They said both pros and cons for both sides. Great stream from ZBoy2000. But yeah, leave your likes on the stream. Guys, last minute thoughts on One Piece and My Hero Academia. Anything else you want to touch on before we end this?
Well, the only good thing I seen for My Hero is that, like, when I did see the movie preview thing, I could tell just by the little bit that I seen of the movie preview thing that, like, yo, they had better fights than One Piece, because One Piece isn't like One Piece isn't the best with their fights and stuff like that. I think that nothing is really touching Rock Lee versus Gaara in One Piece, and that's the early.
This isn't a Naruto stream, so we're not gonna hear that.
No. I know, but I mean, I agree with that.
So good. You go so good. You go so good when you put Naruto into it.
I agree.
Give My Hero Academia like 4 or 5 more years to give it like 3 to 4 more years to really prove itself, and then I think the discussion could be like even more.
Oh
close.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super exciting to see where
gets more-
Horikoshi takes it in 4 or 5 years.
Nah,
Yeah.
but to be fair,
I agree I agree that they probably had better fights than One Piece, but to me, unfortunately, like, I don't read One Piece for the fights. Like, chapters could be dope without fighting, because you get to learn about the characters and the situation about what's going on. I think Oda's like the best storyteller, like one of the best storytellers I ever ran into. So his story game is like on point. Like, if I want fighting, I'll check out Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, other stuff. So One Piece, while One Piece might lack in fighting, because it even lacks in fighting compared to Naruto, but I like One Piece better than Naruto.
Okay, hold up. I love One Piece. I gotta preface this. I know, like, I might sound like a big My Hero stan, but listen, One Piece was the shit that got me into a lot of shonen. Like, it was Naruto, then One Piece, and One Piece, it has a special place in my heart, right? But at this stage in time, I don't know if I'm feeling a bit jaded, but still, I am invested in the One Piece story and where that's going to go. 10 years down the line, wherever that is and whatever I'm doing, I'm still going to be reading One Piece, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know
My
if I
Hero
can say
snatching
that
the crown.
So let me
about
ask you
My
a question.
Hero, but I like people might think, oh, I'm just a stan, but like, the thing is, a lot of fans don't realize this. You can like something and you can still criticize it.
Absolutely.
I like One Piece,
Yeah.
but I feel like I have to criticize when I don't like certain things.
Yes.
And
Same
I
with
think
My
that's
Hero.
an important note to bring up at the end of the stream again, too, is that we love these series. We're talking about them because we love them. Like, don't think that we're trying to hate on stuff or spread toxicity. That's not the case. Obviously, some of the discussions got pretty heated, but that's the fun of, doing live streams. You get to have a bunch of different people sharing their thoughts. By the way, Orpheus, I got to say, man, MVP, so many people were shouting you out in this discussion. You got to come back in another video, because everybody's been calling
I was gonna say one thing about the community. So like I've been making My Hero vids for a while, but like I made ones criticizing My Hero, and I don't think I've had like any dislikes or any negative comments. But when I see like Roger or Dustin make like a video, or like they don't like the One Piece chapter, or like the comment, or like Brago, like some of the comments and like the toxicity, and like people say the My Hero fandom is toxic, but like I don't know, like some of the One Piece fans, they seem kind of crazy too.
How do you feel about it? You've been around the longest, King. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about One Piece fans? Yeah, this man's smart. He's not saying anything.
Oh wait, sorry. You said, oh, my bad. I didn't hear you.
No, he said
I didn't know you were addressing me.
referring to Cole.
No, I know. I said to
okay.
Cole. I said, how do you feel about One Piece fans?
What now?
Exactly. Exactly. That's smart. But yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap the stream up. This really was a lot of fun. I had a good time. Thanks to everybody who dropped by, who participated in the discussion. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Really was a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody who had to drop out too. So, some of the early heads, we had Dustin and Nux and Sunpatch, everybody sharing their thoughts. It really was a lot of fun to do this stream, but I am kind of happy that this is the one and done time that I'm doing, and I probably won't do this again. I can't have all these dislikes all the time.
Try Hunter x Hunter versus One Piece. That would be more interesting.
Oh boy, maybe
that's way more.
Oh, that's easy. That's easy work for Hunter x Hunter.
But guys, if you really enjoyed the stream, please, once again, leave a like. And if you aren't already, please make sure to subscribe, because I do reviews and reactions of the One Piece chapters every Monday. And I do read-throughs of the My Hero Academia manga on the last Wednesday of every other month. So the next read-through I'm doing is going to get into the stuff with Shinso. I've already heard about that, but that's pretty much all that I know. So I am really excited to see where that next read-through is going. And if you don't want to miss that read-through, make sure to click the subscribe button. Thank you again, everyone, to stop by. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye, everybody.